What's going on, fellow A pluses? It's your boy Adam Perez. We're back once again with a brand new episode of A Plus Hero Report, your weekly stop for your Marvel, DC television, and movie news, streaming live for you guys today. We got 6 incredible topics we're going to be diving into. We got the return of James Spader as Ultron, as he's set to go ahead and make his return for the upcoming Vision Quest MCU series. We're also going to dive a little bit more into the canceling of Star Wars The Acolyte after one season. We also got ourselves a huge Lord of the Rings, The War of Rohirrim trailer that dropped this week. We're going to give you our thoughts on it and much more. 6 incredible topics, some honorable mentions, and of course, your live viewer questions. So, guys, we'll see you on the other side. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a brand new episode of A Plus Hero Report, streaming live for you guys today over on YouTube. We're also live over on Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch for you guys out there today. Happy Sunday, Sunday afternoon here in Fort Worth, Texas. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day wherever you're certainly watching today's episode from. Today's episode is going to be solo dolo. It is just your boy Adam Perez breaking down today's news. Indy wasn't able to join me. Stuart was sort of a last minute scratch. So it's just myself, man. So like me, hopefully you've got your coffee. I got my water here. Time to sit back, relax, and really wind down for the week. I hope everybody's had a fantastic week. Great start to the weekend so far. I think we are literally a week away from the beginning of football, maybe like a week and a half or so. I can't remember. I think is Thursday the first game, or maybe it's like next Thursday. I can't quite remember, but football season is almost here. I had one fantasy football draft yesterday. I got another one today after the show wraps. And I think I got one more on NFL.com later in the middle of the week. So I'm going to be running at least around 3 fantasy football leagues this year. But look, if you guys are big sports fans, let me know your thoughts in the comment section box below. If you've got any fantasy football teams certainly going. We got a couple topics, man. Some honorable mentions. We got 6 incredible topics. You guys heard what we're going to be talking about off the top. We do have some horror franchises such as Poltergeist and Friday the 13th in the news here this week. We don't really talk too much horror, but I thought it was fascinating. Some story developments that we've got to talk about today. And then we got a bunch of brand new shows that are certainly getting ready to start. I'm going to have to speak with Indy and Stuart and see how we want to break up some of these shows. We got some Netflix series, some Netflix movies that maybe we might want to bring to your guys' attention and do some reviews for. I know we got The Rings of Power season 2 dropping this upcoming Friday. I think it's going to be like a 3-episode premiere, if you will, to kind of set the tone for season 2. So I'm really looking forward to it. Today, I actually might start my binging for The Rings of Power season 1 to go ahead and do a little bit of a rewatch there. So Rings of Power season 2 and a ton more certainly headed our way. But let me show some love to some people that are in our live chat with us today. And look, if you're in the live chat, if you come by, join us for some discussion, feel free to hit that like button, man. It really does go a long way. Feel free to retweet this video, share this video, let people know A Plus Hero Report is currently live. Who we got here? Enrique. What's up, Enrique? Good to see you, man. Enrique Perez in the house. Just saw the trailer for the new Lego Pixar Brickstown shorts. It'll be coming to a Disney Plus September 4th. Very nice. Yeah, I haven't really followed up with much Lego stuff after the first Lego movie. Also, Pixar's Inside and Out 2 is finally out on digital, and Blu-ray will be out in September. Yeah, after crossing the $1 billion mark, Inside Out 2 now officially top 10, number 10 on the what is it, highest grossing films of all time, believe it or not. So that's going to be coming to digital and Blu-ray shortly. He also says, and finally, 2 months, only months away before Transformers 1 and Beetlejuice movie will hit theaters soon. Yeah, I believe Beetlejuice is in September, if I'm not mistaken. I think they're doing a really big marketing push for it. I think they just dropped like a brand new trailer, maybe last week, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, and then Transformers 1 is getting some pretty good praise out there, honestly. We got Blossom in the house. What's up, Blossom? Appreciate you certainly coming through. Ram Jam, thank you certainly so much for certainly making it, man. Marcelino in the house also. I'm currently watching two-part movie of Sailor Cosmos on Netflix. Oh, nice. I didn't know that it had dropped already. So I appreciate you certainly coming through, Ram Jam, and letting us know and keeping us updated on that. Let's see here. You know what? Let's go ahead and dive into our first segment of the day. And we're going to get to our honorable mention segment. Some stories that we felt you certainly deserve to know about. Others, that just quite didn't necessarily make our top 10, but felt it was certainly still important for you guys to certainly know. Let's see here. For those of you who are horror fans, maybe you guys have heard of a small little movie by the name of Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. The production studio that's been making those films last year announced that they were going to be expanding on their franchise here of a lot of these um, classical characters that have now entered sort of the public domain that people can certainly go ahead and make movies of as long as they are not the Disney counterparts of themselves. And so it began with Winnie the Pooh in regards to turning them into horror creatures. And now it's definitely going to be expanding in 2025. Last year, they announced the Poohniverse. That's right, like Winnie the Pooh, but Poohniverse. And this past week, they went ahead and revealed two new posters for us as to their upcoming films. This one being There's Nothing Holding Him Back. He's got no strings. Pinocchio Unstrung comes one of the horror films that we're going to be getting here. And then, of course, we got Bambi, The Reckoning. I don't even know what the Welcome to the Camping Grounds or Stomping Grounds. I don't know what that says at the top of the poster. But yeah, man, Bambi and Pinocchio are now killers, believe it or not. Both these films getting ready to drop in 2025 as the Pooniverse continues to grow. The Pooniverse. I don't know who came up with that. Like who in their marketing team was like, this is catchy. What else we got? We also got Salem's Lot. There's an upcoming series, a Stephen King adaptation. I believe Stephen King wound up writing a vampire story by the name of Salem's Lot years ago, and it's now going to be getting a retelling on. I think it's on the big screen. Let me look at this. Vanity Fair had a huge article. Sometimes it just takes a while to claw your way to the surface. That's how a lot of the creatives feel about their Hollywood projects, and it's true in multiple ways for the new adaptation of Stephen King's vampire tale, Salem's Lot. Not only is it about residents of a small town who get picked off one by one. Before rising up from the grave as night stalking fiends, but it has been a journey of many years for writer and director Gary Dauberman, who signed on after proving his King bona fides as a screenwriter of It's 1 and 2. Ever since Warner Brothers moved Salem Lot at last moment from its original September 2022 release date, fans have been wondering when the movie may see the light of day. King himself also wanted to know. The author was a little bit frustrated earlier this year, not knowing when Salem's Lot was going to drop. Not sure why WB is holding back. Not like it's embarrassing or anything. Who knows? I just write the effing thing is what he wound up saying. But it looks as though we will be getting Salem's Lot here at some point in time. Fans fear that this adaptation might suffer, but then rumors circulated it was poised instead for a debut on Max. I had the same question everybody else did, is what the screenwriter tells Vanity Fair. This movie was made at a time when a transition to new ownership was happening, which was interesting experience. At a certain point, it's out of your control. People were asking, where's the movie? Where's the movie? I wish I had an answer for them other than a shrug and I don't know. Now he knows for sure Salem's Lot has successfully survived the crucible of corporate merges and scheduling jousting. It does look like the series itself is set to go ahead and Hold on, let me bring up the article. The movie will debut on Max this October, smacked in the midst of spooky season. I'm excited. It's finally getting out there and people can see it. So this movie, technically, according to the article, should have been released back in September of 2022, but it got moved off of its release date due to the merger and whatnot for, I guess, HBO and Discovery. And now the movie itself is finally happening, as we're going to get this Salem's Lot October on Max. So a lot to really look forward to. They had some really great exclusive first look images on a Vanity Fair article here this week. I think this might have gotten a couple of I think this might have been adapted before, but I don't necessarily recall. This is a creepy image of this vampire or whatever this ghoul is that's looking outside this kid's window. But yeah, man, Salem's Lot. If you're big into Stephen King novels being adapted into film, sometimes knocking it out of the park, sometimes not so much. Salem's Lot looks like it's going to be diving back into maybe like that 70s sort of time period. And hopefully we'll get something really successful here. I hope it works out because Stephen King is ready for is ready for this to finally happen. What else do we have for honorable mentions here this week? Let's see here. Oh, you know what's in the news? Power Rangers, believe it or not, Boom Studios this past week made a freaking huge announcement in regards to their Power Ranger comic book franchise. That for somebody that might like myself, that I used to read Power Rangers comic books. I fell off maybe about 2-3 years ago. It's been a minute since I've revisited, but a lot of the talk on the town this week was the idea of a comic book series named Power Rangers Prime, as Boom Studios goes ahead and sort of reboots or revamps sort of its Power Ranger line, and it definitely wind up piquing my interest. So let me actually bring up this article for you guys, and we'll talk about it briefly here as part of honorable mentions. But it says Power Rangers Prime is a new beginning for the franchise. Boom Studios MMPR series has long since established itself as one of the best licensed comics on the stand. The series has spent years building a foundation of the beloved television series and established new Power Ranger characters like Lord Draken and the Ranger Slayer. But that's all finally came to an end this summer with the release of MMPR Darkest Hour #1. An 8-year saga has come to a close. The good news is that Boom hasn't finished with the franchise by any means. That said, they aren't simply relaunching the series with a new #1 issue and a new status quo. The publisher has something more ambitious in mind. Power Rangers Prime, a completely fresh start for the franchise that shares more than a little in common with the Marvel's Ultimate Universe. The new series is written by current writer Melissa Flores and illustrated by Iron Fist Michael Yeague, if I'm pronouncing that right. It says to learn what exactly Power Ranger Prime is and how it reinvents a familiar story, they sat down with Flores and the editor Allison Gronowitz. Here's a preview of it. They got a couple of images here. I don't know if you guys can see these or not. That looks like that's going to be the cover for it. Some alternate covers here and there. Oh, this might be another actual cover for it. Looks like Lauren is going to be front and center of this series, and if you ask me, well deserved. Let's see here. This is her reflecting, yada yada yada. Prior to spearing Power Rangers Prime, I'm trying to actually get into the meat of the article here. With the conflict, with massive scope, the question inevitably becomes what next? How do you follow a story as big and destructive as Darkest Hour? Simultaneously, how do you appeal to new readers who haven't been following the Power Ranger comics over the past 8 years? It says, we were always gearing towards this grand finale for 8 years of Power Ranger comics, and we're looking for an opportunity to relaunch in a fresh way to pull in lifelong Power Ranger fans, but also new fans and people who might look at the large scope of Power Ranger TV shows and being a little intimidated by feeling like, oh, there's so much I have to catch up on. It says this isn't the first time Boom has relaunched Power Ranger comics. Um, the new series is a completely fresh start in a world full of characters, both familiar and new. It's as clean a jumping on point as fans are ever going to get. It says it's one of those things that kept pushing me, being like, think bigger, think a little more out the box. And I kept thinking, no, it has to stay in this world. But the beautiful thing about Power Rangers Prime is that no, you don't. We don't. We get to do something brand new. We're not limited to those 8 years of story arcs and essentially the entire canon of Power Rangers. It was something that was very special about MMPR. It was that they lived alongside canon and we could work with those constraints, but they were constraints. The beautiful thing about Prime is that we can take familiar elements that we love about Power Rangers. We can add elements. We can really turn this into a true comic experience that we don't have to worry about what the other media is doing. We just focus on what we love about Power Rangers in the comic book series. They do liken it to like DC's Absolute Universe or Marvel's Ultimate Universe. While she is a big fan of the Ultimate Universe, she isn't necessarily setting out to follow that playbook. Um, what does it talk about the actual story? Come on. This is turning into more like an actual article that we talked about instead of an honorable mention. It says the new series will immediately focus on a character from a different Power Ranger show, Lauren Sheba from Power Rangers Super Samurai. When we see Lauren, she's on the run from an Eltarian police force who are hunting her down because she's a Power Ranger. And she comes to Angel Grove for a very specific reason and runs into trouble. As we follow her, we start to meet a whole band of other characters who either help her or hurt her, depending on how they feel about Power Rangers. And we also see this new Angel Grove looks like and how it came to be. So it's not the Angel Grove we remember, and there is no Zordon. So they kind of had to figure it out on their own, and the audience gets to do that with them. So yeah, I kind of dig this concept. It feels like, look, I don't know what the events are that happen in a Darkest Hour. Maybe there was a big cataclysmic event, changed the universe sort of as they know it, and given them sort of like a springboard to then create like a sort of a brand new world, if you will, and have some fun in the playground that they're certainly creating here. It is one of those things, man, where if I could be honest, this is everything that I kind of wanted the television series itself to be. And it feels very much like Boom Studios saw an opening. Look, they talk about this idea of this being like the culmination of an 8-year story arc. I don't know if this is something that they have been building or brewing for the past 8 years. Like they knew this was the direction that they certainly wanted to go. But I love the idea that they're sort of flipping Power Rangers on its head and not really having sort of that the canon and timeline constraints of 28 plus years of Power Ranger stories that they're certainly able to tell. This does feel a little bit of like a revamping. Especially after seeing Lauren all the way back in highlighted in the series Shattered Grid. Even since then, I've been asking, or a lot of us I think have been asking for more Lauren in some capacity or another. And so the fact that she's going to be the main lead in Power Rangers Prime, I think, is one, a huge win, that we get ourselves a female ranger, a returning female ranger, but then given us sort of a brand new world to explore. I dig the concept of no Zordon and just kind of revisiting a different world, if you will. And so this is everything that I wanted the television series, the reboot, to be. No Zordon, give me a fresh start. I personally would have liked fresh characters also, but they're clearly going to be sticking with maybe some familiar faces, just not necessarily in the way that we kind of expect them to be. And so, kudos to Boom Studios. Look, they have always been doing some of the best Power Ranger work that we've seen out there. Like, no disrespect to Simon Bennett and what they've been able to do for things like Cosmic Fury and Once and Always, but I've always applauded Boom Studios for having the ability to think outwardly and to not be afraid of going bigger and thinking outside the box and really pushing the envelope in regards to what Power Rangers can be. Like, if you ask me, I think Boom Studios is the only one with the guts and the balls to do something different instead of just rehashing the same old concept. Like, at this point, and I'm not even kidding, look, I don't know if Boom Studios has a production company or if they make movies or television series. I don't know if they're just comic books or if they're expanding, but at this point I almost want Boom Studios to pick up the Power Ranger rights and have somebody, cultivate the Power Ranger property to be bigger, whether it be television, movies, and comic books. But they seem to be the only group of people that have some level of forward thinking as to what can we do with Power Rangers to make it fresh and new and bring in new audiences, but also attract some of the, the returning fans and stuff. And so I think Hasbro should really take a look at what Boom Studios is doing and get the balls to do something much more creative than just recreating MMPR and hoping a streaming service kind of picks it up at this point in time. I really do think that Hasbro at this point is just really pitching a shit show idea in order to eventually have to sell off the licensing rights again at this point. Chris Cox has just really run this IP into the ground, unfortunately. But I love to hear what Boom Studios is doing, man. I might actually get back into Power Ranger comics with Power Rangers Prime. It's really hooked me. But yeah, guys, let me know some of your guys' thoughts in regards to some of our honorable mentions. What are you guys saying in the live chat? Sam, what's up, Sam? Hi, Adam. You okay? Peter Pan horror as well. Yeah, Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmares, I believe, was another one outside of Bambi and Pinocchio. I don't know if that's like a 2026 film, but I do expect to do that Peter Pan film at some point in time. Ram Jim says it would make a little sense for Bambi to have a slasher movie, seeing Bambi hunting down the people who killed his mom. Yeah, getting that revenge on some hunters. Double C, what's up, Double C? Appreciate you coming through. He says, I can't believe we're almost to spooky season. Time does fly. Yeah, it definitely does fly, man. My boy's about to be 3 this November, and I'm like, where did time go? Like, I felt like we just celebrated this a couple months ago. Ram Jam Power Rangers Prime would make a good title for an animated show. Absolutely. He says, Double C says, make this a series. Yeah, like this literally should be the series. Like, when I read it, I just kept thinking to myself, like, man, this is effing brilliant. Like, why didn't we think about this shit before? But look, I definitely do think Jonathan Entwistle certainly had something special and ready for us. I don't blame Jonathan. I don't blame Jenny Klein. I think if anything, I'd probably blame Chris Cox, the CEO of Hasbro, more than anything, are really dropping the ball on this animated series and animated anthology live action series. Yeah, man, they Power Rangers Prime feels like it's perfect for that. Possum says, why make horror out of our childhood? Because we all grow up. Maybe they think we're all cynical now in like our 40s and our 50s, and they're thinking of themselves like they want to see their favorite characters become killers. I don't know. I don't know, Blossom, but they're making some money off of it for sure. I think Blood and Honey 2, the sequel, actually made a lot more money than the first one. But because of the fact that the first one was made on such a low budget and they released it in theaters, the movie actually ended up making a lot more money than what they spent. And so it sort of opened the door then for them to use that money that they got back to get a bigger budget for the second Blood and Honey, which did much better, if I'm not mistaken. And I think probably ended up making a profit also, and now they're utilizing all that profit money to go ahead and create sort of these other ones. Not to say that they're not great, but the fact that they are making profit off of these small budget movies are then allowing them to maybe put a little bit more budget behind these films so they look better visually, even though maybe storyline wise they may not necessarily be the best. But if you make, and this is one of the things about like why people get so frustrated with Hollywood these days, in the sense of like, why are you spending hundreds of millions of dollars on these movies that you know may not necessarily even make it back into the box office? Like, you can make extremely compelling and riveting and incredible stories based off of a much smaller budget. I mean, I'm not even talking like a movie off of $30 million. Like, I'm talking like if you're making a film for 150, 180, you can't make it for 90 million, for $100 million, right? Like, just to save millions somewhere. Because in the long run, you got to make that money back, and that money that you then hopefully make should be going to making upcoming sequels of that, or going towards other properties that are much bigger to help them make more money kind of in the forefront. And so, these production companies here for these horror films, strategically from an economic standpoint, um really making some good choices to be able to knock more of these movies out, because people will go and see them. It's just really depending on how big is your budget, and are you making these movies for the right budget to where you don't necessarily have to worry about it when it releases in theaters. Blossom says, "Don't grow up." Hashtag growing up is a trap. Yeah, man. It's yeah. Always tell our kids, don't be so quick to grow up, for sure. All right, guys. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive into our main topics, shall we? We got quite a few. We got six main topics. Got my morning coffee here. Give me that energy I need to push through these topics. As you guys saw at the top of our thumbnail here, we got a huge Marvel Studios announcement for you guys. As I just sat down last night. My girlfriend looked at me while I was laying in bed watching TV, and she's like, "What? Why are you watching this again?" I ended up watching Age of Ultron. That's right, Avengers 2, Age of Ultron, specifically for the news that we're going to be talking about today, because according to some sources, it seems as though James Spader is set to go ahead and return to the MCU, as he will once again be voicing none other than Ultron himself. I went back to watch Age of Ultron yesterday, just to have a friendly reminder, if you will, about just how freaking good James Spader certainly was as Ultron. And, while I still don't think Age of Ultron is the best out of the Avenger films that we've gotten, I think I came to appreciate it a little bit more yesterday after watching it. From the comic books, I am a big Age of Ultron fan. The last great Ultron story I remember personally reading from the comic books was probably the Kurt Busiek and George Perez comic book run, where they brought Ultron back, I think for it might have been like a 4 or 5 or maybe even a 6 issue arc. I mean, it was absolutely huge. And so when Joss Whedon announced the idea that James Spader was going to voice Ultron, I was blown away. And hearing him in the movie is even creepier. He's got like two aspects of his voice in Age of Ultron. He's got that sort of menacing AI voice that he really taps into, where it's a little bit slow, a little bit more methodical when he delivers it, a little bit more guttural when he delivers his voice. And then he's got that aspect of like Tony Stark influence, of like the quick-wittedness and the charismatic side to his voice, where it's just a little bit lighter when he's trying to connect with people, sort of thing. And so I thought James Spader did an incredible job as Ultron. But when I watch um Age of Ultron, it does make me appreciate the film a little bit more. It really makes me realize just how much Avengers 2 just sort of opened up this MCU world. Despite some of the storyline beats that maybe didn't necessarily work for everybody, the Thor stuff was a little bit weird. We come to find out that it was very like studio hands-on with the, meddling when it comes to Avengers 2. But a couple things really stand out to me. One, in the sense of expanding this world here, um the introduction to Hawkeye's family, I think, is a really huge, important one because they eventually become to have an impact on Clint when it comes to Infinity War and Endgame when his family winds up disappearing. I mean, if you guys recall the beginning opening of Endgame, it's literally Clint losing his family. And I don't know if not getting his family in Age of Ultron allows that scene to have as much impact as it does. And then the family goes on to have another important part in the Hawkeye television series as well. And it really gives some validity, or I don't want to say validity, but just opens the world up to, I think, characters like a Hawkeye and learning about him, learning more about Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow and some of the things that Natasha is certainly going through. This is, this movie also offers us um, one of our last sort of Savage Hulk scenes that we probably will ever get. When we got the very sort of underappreciated, if you will, Hulkbuster versus Hulk scene, which was incredible. I watched it again. Like the fight sequence blows me away just from a standpoint of like the choreography, how well thought out the plan is, just the brutality of seeing Hulk on a rampage and Tony trying to do everything to calm him down. I mean, the implosion of the building that Iron Man puts Hulk through is incredible to certainly watch. A very underrated sort of sequence. And it really kind of puts the Avengers sort of also on their heels here. As Ultron is usually one step ahead of them, as they really have to come up with a huge game plan. And look, the fight sequences at the end, the great one shot of seeing all the Avengers together fighting. I've always been a big sucker of the one shot fight sequences for the Avenger films, and this one has another fantastic one. The creation of Vision in this movie, also Helen Cho introduced in here. I mean, there's a lot of really great world building and expanding. I mean, the everybody trying to lift up Mjolnir, the Thor's hammer in here also, the great party at Avengers Tower. I mean, this movie definitely has some great moments in it. And it is a little bit sad to see maybe just how unappreciative the Age of Ultron movie has come. But it for me, I think it really did a fantastic job of expanding the world for the MCU and establishing a lot of these characters even further. And look, so in the comments, if you have watched Age of Ultron lately, or if you remember Age of Ultron, I definitely want to know some of your great moments from that movie, or what you felt that movie brought to the overall MCU. So while James Spader definitely had his impact, he is set to go ahead and have his impact yet again. As according to the Hollywood Reporter, Marvel sets a returning Ultron for Marvel's Vision series. It says James Spader is returning to the MCU. The Emmy-winning actor is set to reprise his role as the voice of the robotic villain Ultron in Marvel Studios' untitled Vision series, the follow-up series to its acclaimed WandaVision show. Paul Bettany is reprising his role as Vision, the android who fell in love with Scarlet Witch and then was destroyed by Thanos in Infinity War. In WandaVision, he returned via magic and the power of grief, but also as a rebuilt android, now a ghostly white. The much heralded showrunner of Star Trek Picard, Terry Matalas, is spearheading the new show, which has been referred to as Vision Quest, although that is not the official title, which tackles White Vision's search for a new purpose in life. Adding to the show's mythological mix is Ultron, who, as Marvel fans know, was a sentient being created by Tony Stark to act as a defense program, but that instead turned against humanity. Ultron then created his Vision, but before Vision became conscious, the Avengers took his body from Ultron. Vision ultimately was given consciousness courtesy when Bruce Banner and Tony Stark uploaded Jarvis into Vision, creating a being that neither Ultron nor Jarvis. Luckily for Earthlings, this son turns against his father to help Avengers defeat the bad guy. It says Ultron was seemingly destroyed at the end of the movie, so it's unclear as to how he would return and what kind of relationship he would have with Vision. And mind you, rewatching that series again or watching that movie, I do love that dialogue between Ultron and Vision. It's a great back and forth of just two different perspectives of how they both view humanity and sort of, I don't want to say the empathy, but the opportunity that I think Vision sees in the human race that Ultron clearly doesn't. And so to kind of see these two geniuses going back and forth in their thoughts about the Avengers and humanity is pretty riveting stuff. Some of the best dialogue in that movie, but we don't necessarily see Vision at the end destroy Ultron. Ultron leaps towards Vision, and then there's a big pullback shot of just a flash of light. And so we're under the assumption that Vision uses the Mind Stone to destroy Ultron, and he isn't there. There is a part of me that does wonder if Vision at that time, maybe not necessarily fully destroying Ultron, but I do wonder if he saves just a bit of Ultron's consciousness sort of within him. I don't necessarily know if, like, as a backup plan, I don't know if it's just a case of sympathy that he has for the Ultron character in the sense of, he's such an intelligent form of AI. Like, it's a shame if he's completely destroyed. So I do wonder if somewhere along that one sequence, while it's emphasized that the Vision winds up killing Ultron, I do wonder if that flash of light in some capacity is maybe Ultron also saving an inkling of what's left of Ultron. So maybe Ultron is like, gestating somewhere in Vision's head. The series is meant to be a part of a three part. The series is meant to be a three-part excuse me, the series is meant to be the third part of a trilogy that started with WandaVision and continues in Agatha All Along, which debuts in September. The new show is eyeing a shoot in England in early 2025. So even though, despite not having heard a lot about this Vision Quest series, the idea of James Spader returning is probably the biggest news that we've had for Vision Quest in quite some time. But the series is certainly a go. And it is fascinating to me too that, despite the idea of Disney and Marvel talking about, hey, we're gonna pump the brakes a little bit, we're not gonna push out too much stuff. I was kind of expecting to see a lot of series being slashed or no longer moving forward, if you will. And I thought the Vision Quest series was certainly going to be one of them, but we haven't heard of a lot of things that Marvel has decided to cancel or pull the plug on, so much as it is taking sort of a new route towards it, right? Maybe rewriting some things, having a new approach on it, maybe not releasing it as soon as they probably hope for, maybe pushing it a little bit more down the road, if you will. So Vision Quest is certainly still coming, as it looks like it's going to be filming early next year in 2025. And I do like the concept of it being sort of a third part of a trilogy. I mean, hell, you can even say it's a fourth part of a trilogy if you really want to say WandaVision that leads into Doctor Strange 2, that then leads into Agatha All Along, that then leads into Vision Quest. I do wonder if they're all going to have some connective tissues. Like, does Agatha not only bring up moments of Scarlet Witch, but does she discuss maybe what's going on with Vision? That feels like it's a little bit out of place bringing up Vision. But the fact that WandaVision is really the one series that, if you come to think about it, has established the most spin-off series out of everybody, with Agatha All Along and now Vision Quest. I wouldn't necessarily call Captain America 4 a spinoff out of Falcon and a Winter Soldier. Falcon and a Winter Soldier felt much more a spinoff out of the movies themselves. Maybe if we get like a Falcon series with the Torres character, maybe that would be a true spinoff. But I am impressed that WandaVision has allowed us to get two other series out of it. But I guess it shouldn't surprise me based off of the idea of just how big and popular the WandaVision show itself certainly was. So James Spader is coming back, longtime actor. He's been in both film and television. He's done Ultron before, and he plans on returning once again to tackle this character. And to be quite frank with you, I honestly could not be more excited. I think this is great news, man. I truly do. What do you see what some of you guys are saying in here? Double C, whatever they paying James Spader, pay him double because he's a good actor. Loved him on the show Boston Legal. Yeah, James Spader's an incredible actor. I love all his work for the most part. He had a series. Damn, I'm trying to remember the name of the show. The Blacklist. The Blacklist was the one in which I remember him a lot from, just because it was probably his most recent stuff. But I was a big fan of his work on The Blacklist. Marcelino says, I still would cancel the Vision show and just integrate his story into another project. In Homecoming, they had an Ultron head with a glowing red, leading to theories that Ultron is still alive. Yeah, I could definitely see that theory certainly being a case. He says, I still would have canceled Vision's show and just integrate his story into another project. I thought that that's what they would do too. But, look, in hindsight and in reality, Paul Bettany is an incredible actor. Um, I am fascinated in the sense of him now having to find himself after the sacrifice that he made in Infinity War. And the idea of an inclusion now of Ultron and James Spader, there's a part of me that while I initially felt they probably should cancel the Vision show, look, if there is any sort of returning to the OG Avengers in some capacity, the Vision is still very much a member of the Avengers. He still is up there. And look, I think a lot of us, I think, were under the assumption that after Endgame, when they announced a show like WandaVision, we kind of felt it made sense because of the fact that with Chris Evans not coming back at the time, Robert Downey Jr. not coming back, and missing Iron Man and Captain America from that, like who's going to take the next step forward, right? If it wasn't going to be Tom Holland, which it turned out to be, you also got Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange, right? He's probably next up Avengers. The other two Avengers that would make the most sense to push to the forefront and give them an opportunity to shine would be Wanda and Vision. And so the fact that Scarlet Witch got a series of her own, it would make sense that another Avenger in the form of Vision certainly gets his. Could his story have been integrated into another project? Absolutely, Marcel, and I totally agree with you. But I do think, based off of who the character is, based off how the audiences have always really received Vision very well, Paul Bettany, people love Paul Bettany. He's a great Vision. And again, you bring back James Spader, who was remarkable as Ultron. You find yourself a really good sort of storyline that works. You're bringing in the Picard showrunner also to kind of give it a little bit of, I don't want to say a Star Trek flair, but somebody that can kind of work in that world of androids perhaps a little bit. You might have something special here, especially based off of the character growth that we might see for Vision going forward. And so I'm really excited for it. I'm getting more excited for it, I should say. I'm still a little hesitant because I don't necessarily know what the show is going to be, but based off of watching Age of Ultron again yesterday, and seeing just it was there's a great shot towards the end when the Avengers are trying to pick off the last remaining AI Ultron robots that are leaving Sokovia. And you've got a War Machine flying around and he's gunning them down. And just as he gets to like the last two, Vision, this new character, comes out of nowhere and he just slices them up. He like phases into them, splits them apart. He kills another one and he flies off. And War Machine, you just see Don Cheadle like, okay, what? Like, just the idea of him being introduced to Vision this way, I thought was pretty hilarious. But again, I do think that dialogue between Ultron and Vision at the end, very compelling stuff. And if they can kind of take that level of writing and comprehension and character work and bring that into an Ultron series or a Vision series, then yeah, I'm here for it, man. I'm here for it. I'm definitely gonna go ahead and give this series a shot. Sam says, I will like to see Ultron return for a future Avengers film. I don't know if he'll return for a future Avengers film. If anything, I mean, who knows? Maybe Secret Wars he pops up in out of nowhere. I will say this too. They have we are in the multiverse saga. And while, I am not, I got maybe one or two more multiverse movies sort of in me. Um, because there's a part of me that really wants the MCU to really focus on like the characters that we have here. Um, I will say when it comes to the return of Ultron, what if season one had an incredible version of Ultron? An Ultron, if I'm not mistaken, with like winds up capturing the Infinity Stones for himself. And just seeing how what if has kind of impacted the live action MCU in some capacity. I mean, we've gotten Captain Carter in Doctor Strange 2 also, right? So the idea of characters from What If popping up in the MCU at some point in time wouldn't surprise me. And so when they mention something like Ultron returning, there is an inkling. There's just an inkling of me that would like to see that What If season one version of Ultron kind of pop up. I don't know how that would certainly play in regards to the storyline itself. The idea of a multiverse Ultron coming in and then this Vision having to kind of stop it. I don't know. That might be a little bit too jumping of the shark, if you will. Just a cool idea I had. Like, if we're going to utilize the multiverse in any other fashion, I think the Ultron from What If season one would be a great addition. But even if he isn't, James Spader coming back as Ultron is certainly a win, and I think garners some level of excitement for the upcoming Vision Quest series that we're going to be getting. Again, no release date for the series itself, but it is going into production early 2025, so it could be some time away. But we are going to need a vision for these upcoming Avenger films, so we'll see where this takes place at. But guys, let me know your thoughts. How do you feel about James Spader returning as Ultron? Do you think how do you think Ultron certainly will be showcased in this series? How do you think he certainly survives? I personally think Vision doesn't necessarily kill him off at Age of Ultron, but maybe just saves a sliver of his consciousness somewhere deep in his data banks. And maybe after the events of Infinity War being rebuilt, maybe that's a little bit of the struggle in his head that he's now getting the opportunity to, right? Like maybe that Ultron, that piece that he saved, now has the ability to kind of grow based off of the events of what happened in Infinity War along with WandaVision, right? Like maybe he's been a little bit unlocked and unleashed. Maybe the safeguards are a little bit down. And maybe that's like what Vision is kind of struggling with, the Ultron AI trying to take over the Jarvis AI again. And so maybe there's a lot of subconscious kind of back and forth that we're going to be getting. I don't know, but I do think that there's a lot of promise in the return of James Spader as Ultron. But again, guys, I definitely want to know your guys' thoughts in the comment section box below. Your anticipation level for Vision Quest, the return of James Spader, and let me know your thoughts on Age of Ultron. Now that we are watching it, certainly in hindsight. But yeah, go ahead and certainly let me know. I was when I was watching Age of Ultron yesterday, I kept thinking to myself, like, I kind of wish that Marvel utilized their end credit sequences a little bit better than they used to. Like for me, the early days of um, the MCU, I thought really handled them well. Great. We getting two end credit scenes, one that would kind of expand the story and lead us to the next film in the sense of like those characters we literally just watched in this movie, what sort of like their after story a little bit. The mid credits will always do a great job of building off of that. And then the second mid credit scene would also like build off of pushing us into future projects and showcasing how future movies and these moments that we're watching would connect to the bigger overall story and really kind of give us a great push into whether it be the next sequel of this film we just watched or whatever the next movie that's going to be dropping. And it always made it feel much more connective. It always made it feel like we're literally telling a story in parts and moving along with the story as we go forward. And I feel like almost ever since the shawarma scene in Avengers, I feel like they've definitely have taken their liberties, and especially after Endgame, and taken their liberties of maybe not having the best or utilizing their mid and post credit scenes to sort of their fullest potential. Like I feel like they've kind of taken those for granted and have made them just more comedy bits lately than actually utilizing it as a story purpose and a story moment to kind of push the story forward. And so there's an element of hopefully the MCU goes back to that a little bit in regards to these upcoming films, because while we look at a lot of the upcoming films and TV series projects, there is still like that missing connectivity in the sense of like, how do all these movies even work together to tell the grander, bigger story? And so I do hope that they kind of get back to that a little bit, because I always felt that it certainly helped out. With that out of the way, though, we will go from one franchise to another one, as we're going to get into my bag here, which is Star Wars, baby. As a Star Wars this week, guys, was dealt a blow, to certainly say the least, as the Acolyte is in the news this week, as fresh off of its season one wrap up. It's about maybe a month or so ago. If you guys missed it, we had ourselves a little bit of a Jedi Council here that broke down each episode of the Acolyte for you guys. We do have a playlist, our Star Wars playlist, if you want to go back and check it out. It was myself, Stuart, Crystal Kyber from YouTube, along with Will Polk from Cena Nerd, given a very fair, balanced perspective and view and review of the Acolyte series for all 8 episodes. If you guys want to go ahead and check it out, please go ahead and do it. It's currently all up on our YouTube channel. I think overall we graded the series itself a low B. I think it was like a 83%, almost a B minus. Came in at like 82.5%. So we rounded up to be a little bit generous. So we graded this series a B. At the end of the day, I think some of us thought the series was good, not great, not perfect. Some of us thought the series was just okay, nothing to write home about or to certainly celebrate. And so I thought we had a pretty good and fair-minded balance of opinions when it comes to Star Wars: The Acolyte. But never here did we ever feel like the series itself was trash or terrible or shouldn't have been created or made. We just felt like it was a series that was taking a lot of risks, some big swings, some that certainly missed. The execution of the series, maybe not necessarily the greatest. Some of the character arcs could have really been defined a little bit more. While some of the acting performances were incredible for actors like Manny Jacinto, along with Lee Jung-Jae as Quimir and Master Soul, there were others that were a little bit wooden, unfortunately, at times. Some people felt gaslighted in the sense of having big stars like Carrie-Anne Moss and Daphne Keane kind of killed off relatively early within the series. And it felt like this show didn't really hit its fullest potential until sort of the finale, where it really opened up the world in the sense of, where could they go with a season 2? So, I always felt that Acolyte season 1 did a good job of at least establishing this brand new era, this brand new world that we had, and giving us some inklings as to how season 2 and this story could really expand if certainly given an opportunity. But I think one of the things walking away from Acolyte season 1 for a lot of us was, I think we were kind of in the middle in the sense of, should the show get a second season? Do we want a second season? And I think a lot of us, if I recall, we're kind of like, look, if it gets a second season, cool. Am I begging for a second season? No. But if it gets one, awesome. We'll probably watch, right? And I think that's probably where a lot of fans certainly came in at, people that actually watched the show itself. But we got some news this week for the Star Wars community that really ruffled some feathers. Some people being like, "Yay, we won, victorious!" Other people kind of really baffled at it. But according to Deadline, I believe this is Deadline that I'm reading. Yes, Deadline.com. The Acolyte canceled. No season 2 for Disney's Star Wars series. Um, Hey, the girlfriend's in town. What's up, Cindy? Good to see you, baby. Good afternoon, Mr. A plus. Well, good afternoon, Mrs. A plus. It's good to see you. Let's get into this article. And can I just say, because I brought my girlfriend up on here, Cindy, she made I after this news dropped, I remember telling her like, "Hey, babe, just so you know, Acolyte season 2 got canceled." And you should have seen her face. She was kind of devastated, or at least I don't want to say devastated, but she was definitely surprised. One of the things that she said to me was that out of all the Star Wars series that she's kind of watched, this is the one that she really looked forward to the most. That really kind of stood out to her. And she's not a big Star Wars fan. I mean, she watches Star Wars along with me. She's always right now kind of trying to push me to have our son watch Star Wars. I kind of want to wait a couple of years before I really introduce him to the franchise. But for somebody who I view as sort of like general audience member, somebody on the outside kind of looking in when it comes to Star Wars, I do think that there is a world out there and a group of people that really did look forward to the Acolyte. That maybe got tired of the same old that Lucasfilm is kind of presenting to us, or the same time periods that Lucasfilm is presenting to us. And so I do think that there is a group of people out there that are hoping for Lucasfilm and Disney to take some big swings, to give us something new in this particular world. And the fact that the Acolyte got canceled after season 2, after season 1, certainly surprised my girlfriend. And it is funny because I brought up the story. My girlfriend, Cindy, could probably point this out and say something in the comments if she wants to, just to verify that I'm not bullshitting people. But I posted that on Twitter about how my girlfriend was kind of devastated. People were like, "Liar, liar." Nobody wants to see, like, yeah, I'm telling you, man, Twitter is such a cesspool of negativity. I'm like, okay, bro, like you know my life, like the people that I interact with. Like, I'm sorry that your negative ass algorithm that you surround yourself with every day on Twitter hates everything that you watch, and your simple-minded brain can't comprehend that there are other people in this world that maybe enjoy things that you don't like. But I'm the liar. Okay, boy, you stay in that negative ass little bubble of your life. Okay. But there are definitely plenty of people out there that certainly would have liked to have seen more from the Acolyte, even though I do understand why some people may not necessarily have cared for a season 2. But let's dive into this as to why we're not getting ourselves a season 2. This is an exclusive story. It says the story of the Acolyte will not continue, with Lucasfilm opting not to proceed with the second season of Star Wars Offshooting, starring Amandla Stenberg. Word of the decision comes more than a month after 8 episodes, first season of the series from creator, director, executive producer, and showrunner Leslie Headland wrapped its run on Disney+. The news is not entirely surprising. The Acolyte did okay with critics, and that's a term that I hear a lot, just okay. With at 78% on Rotten Tomatoes, but divided Star Wars fans, which was reflected in its overall viewership. Driven by interest into the venerable space franchise, The Acolyte got off to a strong start when it launched June 4th with 2 episodes, generating 4.8 million views in its first day on the streamer, to rank as the biggest series premiere on Disney Plus this year. The tally rose to 11 million views globally after 5 days of streaming. Corroborating Disney's data, the series made its debut on Nelson's top 10 original charts when it premiered. Its premiere week at number 7, climbing to number 6 for the following week. It says, but the Acolyte could not sustain the momentum, dropping out of the top 10 in week 3 and staying off before returning at number 10 with the finale release. Like fellow global streamers, Netflix, Prime Video, and Disney has a high viewership threshold for renewing high-end, big-budget series that cost well above 100 million per season to make. So they are definitely looking at it from a viewership standpoint here, in a sense that, look, at the end of the day, it got middling um, viewership, did great, declined after that, came back up a little bit in its final week, but overall just didn't necessarily sustain the momentum. And then everywhere you look on social media, it's just very much a mixture and dividing of fans, if you will. Um, and so it seems as though Disney certainly took notice of that. And when you're spending $100+ million, you probably when you make that type of when you're spending that type of money, you probably expect a much bigger return in profit and viewership than what this series was initially getting. So I definitely get it from that perspective. Like, to me, it logically makes sense that that's why they decided not to do it. Um, look, before I get into this, I do want to I do want to highlight an actual actor's thoughts on this, because the actor who did a marvelous job in the Acolyte came out and recently said he was actually quite surprised that it didn't get renewed. And despite the fact that he probably himself wasn't going to be in the second season, who knows? Maybe he comes back as a Force ghost to haunt Vernestra Rowe after the way that she just like shit all over his name at the end of season one. But this comes to us from Variety. Lee Jung-Jae is quite surprised Disney canceled the Acolyte after one season. I'm hoping for changes in the future so we get a season two. He says he's quite surprised. Um, he says, to hear the news, I was quite surprised personally as well, is what he said to Entertainment Weekly. And one of the show's biggest twists, okay, yada. He says, as you know, my character died already in the first season, so I wouldn't have appeared in the second if there was one anyway. But personally speaking, I really loved Leslie's writing. I thought she was a great writer and director who was very talented in the storytelling, as well as creating characters and creating meaningful structure within the story. So I'm actually personally really looking forward to watching the season two with her at the helm. Honestly, I am hoping that maybe there could be changes in the future, because you never know what's going to happen. So on a personal level, I really hope that we get to see future stories of Leslie's second season. So that's what Lee Jung-Jae certainly had to say in regards to it. Per Variety, some critics and fans love how the show challenged the traditional perceptions of the Jedi as infallible and wholly virtuous. Other fans, however, felt that those creative choices were antithetical to the good versus evil nature of Star Wars telling, and strongly objected to the show's expansion of the mythology of Force. Yeah, why would we want to expand things? Let's just live in the world where everything is just so simple and broken down for us and hand fed to us like we're babies and we can't critically think for ourselves. Like, yeah, let's just keep a lot of these franchises just struggling from growing and opportunity. Like, okay. So like, look, even Jung-Jae Lee, what the fuck? What did I even say his name was? Lee Jung-Jae. Even Lee Jung-Jae is kind of surprised at the idea that the Acolyte is no longer being renewed. So look, man, I did give a little bit of a video about this. I talked about this earlier last week, but I've had some time to kind of sit back and think about it a little bit. And look, I do think that Disney canceled this show because of its viewership and its numbers. I know that there are a lot of people that probably believe like, oh man, I think Disney probably listened to the loud minority again, and got cold feet and decided not to renew the show because of the divisiveness of this show. And I don't, maybe that played somewhat of a part in it, even though I think I've been reading a lot of sources that say like, look, that really had no play in it whatsoever. I think it probably had like 10-15% to do with it. And I think that's when you start taking into account the reviews and the mixed bag of reviews. And I say 10 to 15% because there are some constructive criticisms out there of this show just not being a great show, right? But I do think that those people that were constructive in their criticism, I feel like there's a part of me that a lot of them would have said the Acolyte created a great foundation for them to explore season 2 further. The issue that I have here more than anything is that I just personally think the streaming structure is just effed up right now. Um, I think that they are really undercutting the creative process of their creators to just go out there and certainly create. I do think it's wholly unfair that you give these creators 6 or 8 episodes to make a breakout hit, and expect people to just immediately jump on board. It just feels like you got to be perfect out the gate, or there's no opportunity for you to certainly grow as a show or as a franchise. And I think that just does damage to the franchise itself and really undercuts the ability of what you can then sort of create. Um, and that's not Star Wars. That's a bunch of other series. How many series have you watched on just streaming in general that you've been a big fan of from season 1? And despite being a big fan of it, they pull the plug on it immediately. Right? You see that a lot on Netflix. You see that a lot on Max. I'm sure Peacock does it. It's just like the streaming way now. Like if you're not in the top 10 every week, if you don't have huge viewership, they're just not gonna renew you. And I just don't know if that's a healthy way of for television. I don't know if that's a healthy way for creators, because then I think then it forces studios to kind of go back to the drawing board and just be more corporate production studio meddling in projects surrounding reboots and revamps and sequels and doing the same old, or revisiting the same characters, or revisiting the same time period that people were big fans of. And what does that cause? That causes contracting of creativeness, right? That causes people to just get out of their soapbox and their sandbox and just go back to what we knew. I've heard some people talk about the idea like, oh, I guess now we're gonna get like 2 new Luke Skywalker movies. I've been seeing people like joke around about the idea of like, oh, maybe they'll give us a live action Clone Wars series, or maybe they'll give us a live action Rebel series. Yeah, maybe. Like maybe that's might what will happen, in the sense of actually taking a creative risk and giving us something brand new. It's like, what have we done before? And can we now just make that into a live action adaptation of something, right? Like they're already doing that with the Disney movies that people complain about all the time. You don't think that's something that Lucasfilm, because of something like the Acolyte not being successful, might start thinking in the sense of, man, maybe we shouldn't take these creative risks anymore. Like the idea of the Acolyte being canceled after one series now makes me worry about movies like the Rey Skywalker movie, and even the James Mangold First Jedi movie. Why would we want to visit the First Jedi movie? Like why? Why would Disney and Lucasfilm even want to tackle that story anymore? Because heaven forbid Disney takes a character from like 10,000 years ago and creates this concept of where the Force originally came from, and then you're gonna have OG Star Wars fans get online and start hating about the idea. That's not what George initially said. That's not how the Jedi think come the original trilogy. And I can't comprehend the idea that ideas and things change over time, concepts of what original ideas eventually grow into over time, right? Like these closed-mindedness of some people won't allow Disney and Lucasfilm to take creative pathways like that. And so it does make me really worried with the Rey Skywalker movie, the James Mangold movie. We're clearly getting the Mandalorian and Grogu because why? We've gotten it before. People have been a big fan of it. Let's just go back to it again. If there is any movie that did survive, that I think probably ends up surviving, is the Dave Filoni one. Why? Because we already have the Mandalorian in the Ahsoka series, and he did such a great job on Rebels and Clone Wars. Like, let's just go back to what we know and give us more of Dave Filoni stuff. Like, it's just a tragedy, and it's one of those things where I just think, especially in the time period in which it's streaming now, I think streaming shows should be given a minimum of at least 2 seasons, like at least the minimum, in the sense of like, hey, if you've got a compelling story to tell, tell the story that you want to tell, beginning, middle, and end. You've got 2 seasons to certainly do that in, and if it's received well, then we'll probably move forward with the show. I think that's probably what helps somebody like Tony Gilroy with Andor, because I do believe if from some of the things that I've read, Tony Gilroy asked in his contract, give me 2 seasons. So he can literally tell his story. Homeboy's got a huge budget. He got 12 episodes out of his show, and he's getting a second season. And if anything, despite what the viewership of Andor says, it's been critically acclaimed. Those that did watch it love the show. It's got great reviews. And look, some people maybe the pacing was, and that's fine, but majority of the people were really big fans of Andor. And now he's getting a second season to build upon that even further. And this is coming from a guy in Tony Gilroy who isn't a huge Star Wars fan. He's not a big Star Wars fan, but he just knows how to creatively sort of tell a story. And he wind up getting two seasons. And so I just think if you're a creator and you go into Lucasfilm, you got to get at least 2 seasons. And I say this because, look, Amazon put a lot of money behind the Lord of Rings, Rings of Power. And they said, we got 5 seasons of the show, guys. All right. We have a middle, beginning, and end. We have a game plan. We've got 5 seasons of the show. Season 1 wasn't that well received. Some people enjoyed it, maybe middle of the road. I don't know what the viewership numbers were when it comes to the Rings of Power. That's being run by a group of showrunners that really have little to, I don't want to, very little sort of, I don't want to say ability, but experience under their belt in regards to being given these big budget properties to go ahead and create. But Amazon, despite the pushback that Rings of Power season 1 did wind up receiving, guess what? Even that show got a season 2. Even that show got a season 2. And that allows the showrunner to then make changes, make audible calls, strengthen the script, go in different directions, review sort of what they've got in their script, rework things, and hopefully come back with a second and strong season. And I think that's what all television shows should get. I think at least the minimum of 2 seasons in order to kind of build off of what you kind of established. But look, when you pay these type of extraordinary amounts for a television show, which mind you, I do think season 2 of The Acolyte would have been cheaper to make. And I say that because usually the first season is always the most expensive because of the set designs, the costume designs, and everything that has to initially be built to create this world. Whereas when you come back for a second season, all that prior work that you did for season 1, all that is there already. So season 2 probably of The Acolyte probably would have been a little bit cheaper. It would have allowed Leslie Headland to go back, make some creative changes, bring in some new actors, maybe get another co-writer on board, like to make the necessary changes to hopefully have really righted the ship and address some of the weaknesses that season 1 had. But streaming these days just does not afford that. If it's not lining the pockets of shareholders immediately, they're not going to go forward with it any longer. And so I really do think it is the streaming setup that they have where it feels as though they've cared less about movies because they only let their movies survive in the theaters for like 2-3 weeks these days. If you don't see a movie within the first 2-3 weeks, good luck. Good luck, because they want that movie to be on their streaming service so their streaming numbers can keep going up and up and up. Okay. Because they want that residual to hit for their shareholders. And it almost feels as like they're putting all this money behind these television series to turn them into 3-hour movies broken down into 6 to 8 parts, if you will. I never will understand the idea of giving us a live action Star Wars with under 30 minutes of television time, and you're spending all this money in the budget of putting these type of shows together. To me, it just feels like streaming hasn't figured out what it wants to be, and the corporate entities that run these streaming services and these production companies don't know how they want to handle their own streaming service, unfortunately. And so it's like, if a show just doesn't win the hearts of millions of people, um just don't get attached to things anymore. That's really the mentality that it's kind of been giving off. So I don't think that this show was canceled due to, the incels out there, the homophobes, the misogynists. Like, I don't think that that's, I think they probably had 10 to 15% to do with what happened. But I do think like it sends a completely wrong message. One, because you make them think that they won, despite the fact that I don't think that they had that much to do with it. But then two, it just sets a precedent of Star Wars needing to be perfect all the time. And if it's not perfect, we're just going to go back to what it is that we know. And, for fans that complain about it's always Skywalker stuff and they never do anything different, this was our opportunity to get something different. Was it executed perfectly? No, but it doesn't mean that a second season wouldn't have been done a little bit better, right? So what does that mean now? Are we gonna get a Knights of the Old Republic revamp stuff? Like, why would we go over there? Why would we do that now? Right? Are we gonna get other television series in the High Republic era? Are we ever gonna revisit this? What about Darth Plagueis that was teased? Are we ever gonna get Darth Plagueis in live action going forward? Like, I can easily see a lot of these storylines being picked up in the form of novels or comic books, but I would think that people would want to see this stuff sort of in live action, whether that be movies or television series. But no, we may get ourselves a Luke Skywalker series with terrible AI face of Mark Hamill over whoever the new actor is, and tell us stories that we've seen before. Maybe it's live action remakes of animated series that we've seen before. Like, this just allows the Star Wars bubble to just continue to shrink. And I think because of the fact that Disney and Lucasfilm are so reactionary to things and don't necessarily plan things out accordingly, it does not reward them to take risks. And I think that this is a perfect example of that, unfortunately. So yeah, poor viewership. I think some of the word of mouth might have certainly gotten around about the film or the series itself, and not a lot of people certainly watched. But I do think if you don't listen to those that hate watch or grift off of negative algorithms and make money off of being hateful towards content that you watch and you're supposed to be a fan of. I think you'll walk away appreciating what the Acolyte attempted to do, even though I still think you'll walk away understanding this show wasn't great. It has a good foundation and it's promising. And I think for that alone should have given Acolyte season 2 to go ahead and come in with a smaller budget and a more tightened script and execution, and maybe bringing somebody else in to kind of help Leslie Headland tell this story. But to me, it just feels like Lucasfilm being afraid now to certainly take a risk and needing Star Wars to be perfect for its shareholders in order to make back that money as quickly as possible. And I just think streaming really undercuts the creativity of a lot of these franchises, certainly going forward, unfortunately. I'm starting to miss the days of cable television. I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't need 20 plus episode seasons like the CW did, but I am comfortable with 12 to 15. I do think stories need the opportunity to breathe and to build emotional connections with people and not be just a chopped up 3.5 hour movie into 6 to 8 episodes. It's just not working. It's just not working. Um, So we'll see. We'll see what happens to Star Wars in the future, man. But it is not promising. I at this point, and I'm a big Star Wars fan, man. But at this point, I really have no sort of confidence in how they make their decisions over there. Look, we got Andor season 2 that's getting ready to drop next year, and then we got Skeleton Crew by John Watts, who, God, I'm hoping and praying that that movie does well. I really, or that series does well. I really, really am, because we do need some creativity and some swings when it comes to Star Wars. Marcelino. He says, I heard a lot of people hated the twin concept and the Acolyte because it doesn't make Anakin feel special, and now someone else stole what made him unique. And see, this is the people, and this is the people that don't watch the fucking show. Like, these are people that literally they either watch the show and they truly lack comprehension, or they watch the show, they intellectually know what is happening, but they're intellectually dishonest and gaslight people into thinking that the show is doing that one specific thing that you just mentioned. And it's not. It's not. There is a clear difference. If you've watched the show, the twins do not make Anakin feel less special. Anakin is literally a virgin in the Force. The Force literally got together by itself and said, I want to create a human being. And the virgins and the Force created a virgins, not around a place or an animal. Anakin is literally a walking virgins. The Force made him. The Force did not make the twins. So right there, it's like, it's not the same. The Force was manipulated by witches and perhaps other additional dark magic or dark powers to utilize the virgins that was around this planet to create life. And also the idea that the twin was literally a creation of one virgin, was literally a creation of something, and that one body, and then split into two consciousness. Like, they're literally the same being. They were created using the Force. Anakin is literally the Force incarnate. Like, there is a huge difference. If you watch the show, you know this. But there are people out there that did not watch the show and want to bitch about this concept and have no idea what they're talking about, or people are intellectually being dishonest and pointing out something that is not true, that are becoming grifters of a negative algorithm, because negativity gets clicks, negativity gets money, but these fans want to hate on something. I really would like to see how much time some of these people spend loving and enjoying an aspect of this franchise compared to how much time they actually hate on the franchise. Like, the idea of, I heard somebody say this before and it rings true to me. Being a fan of something doesn't mean how much you know. And I think there are plenty of people that think that they know a lot about Star Wars, but don't know shit. Like, know the over, like the first layer of stuff, but don't know anything else. But they think they know everything. Okay. It's not about how much you know, it's about how much you love. That's what makes you a fan. And it doesn't mean you have to love everything, but how much time out of your day do you go hating on something that you're supposed to love instead of celebrating the aspects of the things that you love? It's just dishonest ass people like this that just really is really what is bringing down this fandom. It truly is, because half these people get blue check marks and people trust them and their opinions, when in reality, they're just gaslighting you half the time. They're just making money off of people being fucking gullible and not doing their own research and not being able to think for themselves. And yet they spew stupid ass shit like this. Because if you watch the show, you know very much, if anything, it makes me feel like Anakin is even more special, because they could not recreate what the Force did. So people like this just drive me crazy. The Star Wars YouTuber made a great point in his Acolyte review in the end of his video that I highly recommend it, and I give you a good insight on someone else's. Okay, yeah, maybe. Marcelino says, I hear people say they want a Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader show. See, that's what I'm talking about. So Disney can focus on what the fans want. And this, see, this is why the fandom just drives me fucking crazy. I swear, like the internet has made people feel like the most entitled douchebags in the fucking world. I really do. It's made everybody feel like a gatekeeper, like they know what's fucking best for the fans. I'm sorry. I don't want that. And I'm a fan. So these people that say they, oh, give what the fans want, stop it. Stop it. Because you're fucking lying to yourself. Stop it. And I'm sorry if I'm cursing or getting really riled up, but I'm just tired of that side of the fan base that thinks that they're high and mighty and that they know what's best for fans. No, they don't. Granted, to be fair, I am one of those people that say I would take a Darth Vader show. I would take a Darth Vader show. But what I suggested was, look, we've got a great book in The Lords of the Sith that literally follow Anakin Skywalker as Darth Vader, like within this first year or two of Darth Vader. It explores the Palpatine and the training of Darth Vader and the interpersonal struggle that Vader still has of loving Padme and that struggle of the light side and the dark side. So I say yes to a Darth Vader show in the sense of you got a great story that you can adapt from. That if you want to go back and do something that we've done before, Darth Vader would be great. But I think it just comes down to the idea like this isn't just what all fans want though. Some fans want creative risks. Some fans want to get outside of the box of these timelines that we've already given, that we've already focused on. And this is why I say this, and people get really upset with me when I say stuff like this, but I mean it. Stop making content for one group of fans. Like, just make content because you have a story to tell. You think George Lucas gave a fuck what people thought when it comes to him making the prequels? No. The dude had a story to tell, and he said you either like it or you don't. And people bashed his prequels for like 20 years until they eventually came around and was like, oh, this actually isn't as bad as we thought it was. You think George Lucas gave a F? No. George Lucas is like, hey, I got a really great story I want to tell that's going to expand Star Wars. F what the fans think. And he told his story. If Disney and Lucasfilm are worried so much about pleasing every aspect of a fan base, you're not going to create anything. Like nothing creative. You're not going to have anything great because you're so worried about appeasing certain people. Just make the story that you want to make. If you think it's a great story, make the story. Because unfortunately, and this is the truth of it, people are never satisfied. You can literally give people what they want and they'll say, oh, that's not quite how I wanted it though. Or they'll move the goalpost even further and further and further and never be truly happy. You're always going to make something that will appease to one group of fans, but may not appease to other people. And that's fine because guess what? Star Wars is multi-generational now. You got to make content for younger kids, for young adults, for OGs. Like you have a huge sandbox to play with. Create. Just create. Who gives up what people say? Like turn off social media and just create. Go get you some star-studded creators that want to play in the sandbox and have them create, and the fans will take it or leave it. But this whole, you got to give the fans what they want. They want this, they want. Fans don't know what they want. We may think that we do, but there are plenty of times I've watched something and said, well, that's not quite how I would have done it, but damn, that's pretty smart. I kind of like that idea. Create because you want to create, because you got some incredible story that you want to tell. You can't start trying to appease every single fan out there because you're going to miss out on opportunities. And then again, you're just going to fall back into the same concepts of let's just do what we've done before. The gold man. Okay, well, yeah, I know. I've already, if that's his mentality, I just, The type of people who hated the twin concept I see are not the toxic kind. They have fair criticisms. They just hate the idea in general and call out toxic fans. I'm not saying that they're a toxic fan. I'm just saying they're clearly not like they're clearly not comprehending the show well, right? That's what I said. I said there are either two types of people. One that are being intellectually dishonest with you and know that that's not the case and want to gaslight you into thinking that that's the case, or they have terrible comprehensive skills. And I got no problem with saying somebody that's a fair-minded critic of a show isn't fully comprehending what they're reading or what they're actually watching. You can hate the idea, but it doesn't mean that the idea that you're saying is the idea that it is, because it's not. If they hate the idea in general because of they think the idea is the twins don't make the Anakin Skywalker feel special anymore, they're hating on an idea that is not even the reality of the situation. Do you see what I'm saying? Right? They're hating on a make believe idea, because that's not the idea. Anakin is still his own individual. He is still very much special and completely different than what the twin concept is. So if they think the twins and the Anakin are the same, they're hating on a completely wrong idea. That's what I'm saying. It don't matter if you're fair-minded criticism, don't mean if you're a toxic fan. If you're not comprehending what you're actually watching and paying attention to it, what good are you as a critic? What good are you? People want to be critics, but they don't know how to watch anything. They probably want to watch in the sense of, they probably go into a show trying to watch, like, how is the show going to disappoint me this week? What can I pick out when I watch the show that I don't like about it? Instead of just sitting back and enjoying the show and listening to the character arcs and picking up context clues and comprehending what people are watching. Like, what are we doing, guys? Yet I'm supposed to trust your opinion on something when you can't even comprehend what the idea being presented is. Like, man, no wonder people are fucking idiots these days. Like, god damn. I'm sorry. I just don't got patience anymore, man. I don't know if that's the New Yorker or New Jersey in me. I just don't got patience for stupidity, bro. Like, I just don't. And again, that's not to say that I know everything about Star Wars, because I don't. I'll be the first person to tell you, but I can watch a show and understand what the fuck is going on. Wow. Anyway, well, trust your sources, man, where you get stuff from. I highly recommend, like, if you have a YouTuber that you watch, go up and down their scroll list, their videos. How much is that shit negative stuff on their thumbnails? How much is it? Oh, thank God this person's gone. Oh goodness, so glad that this is like, how can you literally call yourself a fan of a franchise and celebrate the cancellation of a show? Like, I don't care if you didn't like it or not, but to celebrate the cancel, like, give me your fucking fan card right now, bro. Like, you're a fucking disgrace. You're just a disgrace, man. At that rate, I wouldn't want to create anything for you motherfuckers. Like, I just wouldn't. So Lucasfilm, Disney, create, bro. Create. Stop worrying about your shareholders all the fucking time. Stop worrying about what the internet is going to. Twitter is not a real place. It's not a real world. Like, we got to stop. I wish cable was still around. Fuck, man. I wish cable was still around. Like, streaming has just brought out the stupidity in, like, corporate decisions. It truly has. But anyway, I digress. I've been ranting and raving. I'm sorry. Anyway, let's get into our next topic, y'all, shall we? From one franchise to another. One that clearly wants to expand upon the franchise as best as it possibly can, and that is The Lord of the Rings. We wind up getting ourselves a brand new Lord of the Rings, The War of Rohirrim trailer this week. We got ourselves a brand new animated Lord of the Rings film that's set to go ahead and drop in theaters this holiday season. We have highlighted some of the first look exclusive images that we've gotten in the past from Entertainment Weekly and stuff. But this time around, we actually have ourselves a brand new trailer. In fact, I wonder if I should actually play this trailer for you guys. You know what? Why not? Let me see if I can find it on the YouTube channel, on our Facebook page. Excuse me. Here. If you guys haven't checked it out, we're about to watch it right now. I've watched this maybe 2 or 3 times already, but haven't it. Looks like we're getting ready to revisit. Here we go. Let me pull this up here. Facebook. Boom. Let me know if you guys can hear it okay. Kenji Kamiyama is the director.
All Middle Earth knows the tale of the War of the Ring. But 200 years before that...
Riders of the Mark! Brothers of Rohan!
There was an older tale.
Arise!
We come with an offer to strengthen Rohan.
Hera, daughter of Helm, I, Wolf, seek your hand in marriage.
Our fathers speak as if I were not even in the room.
I do not want to marry you.
You do not seek an alliance. You seek a throne. You will live to regret this, old man.
Old? Oh, man, knocked him out with one punch.
He's dead.
Oh, shit, he killed
You will
him.
pay for this with your life.
Well, you shouldn't have hit me,
Boy
bro.
I knew would never wish for war.
The boy you knew is gone.
Fire!
There's so many of them. I pledged to fight for my king.
You know nothing of war.
I'm the fastest rider you have.
Nice.
People need hope, Hera. Something to believe in.
My pride, my joy. You could rule the world. You think I am afraid of you?
Man, action looks great.
You should be.
What does mortal want with rings?
Oh, it's coming out Christmas. Check it out in IMAX for sure. So we got ourselves a brand new War of Rohirrim trailer for you guys. What'd you guys think? Let me know you guys' thoughts in the comment section box below. I think it looks great. I really do love the look of it. Animation wise looks on point. I dig the concept here. It seems as though certainly two different tribes, one trying to help the other grow in regards to making them together by marrying the daughter and the son together and strengthening their alliances. Clearly that doesn't go well, as the two leaders wind up having fisticuffs with each other in the process, one of them being killed. And it seems very much as though this certainly ignites a war, in which I don't know the girl's name in here, but clearly lifelong friends forced to try and be married, despite her not wanting to marry him, being friends now turned enemies, it seems like. We did see a visual in the very beginning of Helm's Deep from the Two Towers. I do wonder if this is a story of the original war that is talked about in the Two Towers or not, of Helm's Deep. So who certainly knows? But I'm really looking forward to this, man. For those of you who don't know about the War of Rohirrim, let me bring up this article from Variety that talked a little bit about the trailer itself. Says the trailer, Middle Earth gets anime prequel with war elephants, great eagles, and Brian Cox. That's right. Brian Cox is actually voicing the king of Rohan here. It's set to go ahead and release December 13th. Directed by Kenji Kamiyama, this film takes place 261 years before the events of the Fellowship of the Ring, featuring Helm Hammerhand as the protagonist. The film is based on the story of J.R.R. Tolkien's, included in the appendices of The Lord of the Rings. Brian Cox voices the iconic king of Rohan, while Miranda Otto, who starred in Peter Jackson's film trilogy, returns to lend her voice to her original character, Eowyn. So yeah, if you guys recall, in the Two Towers, Eowyn is the one that was falling in love with Aragorn. And, Eowyn finds inspiration in not wanting to necessarily be like the traditional fair maiden, if you will. She wanted to fight. She wanted to be on the battlefield. And it does make me wonder if this is the character in which Eowyn kind of gets her inspiration from. And I think that's a cool little throwback into seeing like why her character is why the character is the way that she is and where she gets that inspiration from. In the animated film, the king must defend his land against an army of Dunlandings, and an origin story revealing how the stronghold Helm's Deep got its name. So yeah, it looks like this might be visiting the big war at Helm's Deep originally mentioned in the movies. With the story by Jeffrey Addis and Will Matthews, Philippa Boyens, who co-wrote the film trilogy with Jackson, serves as producer. The creative team also includes the original trilogy contributors, Richard Taylor, Alan Lee, and Tolkien illustrator John Howe. Kenji Kamiyama is known for directing the series Blade Runner, Black Lotus, and Ghost in the Shell standalone complex. So yeah, it looks like they're tapping into the appendices of this battle, of this story, and really sort of building upon it. And then it's just a great way of continuing to expand its stories here. Look, I'm a big fan of this, and I'm a big fan of it in the sense that I like that people are tackling the appendices. The appendices may give you sort of brief understanding of some of the events, but then allowing you to kind of take liberties and work around things in order to bring these characters in this world to life a little bit. Like, I think in the appendices, I don't think that they even mention who this female character's name is. I think they just refer to her as a she or her, like that somebody had a pivotal role, but they don't really expand upon who this character was. And so I do think that the War of Rohirrim, the writers are expanding upon that and maybe adding a little bit more origin story and lore to the Lord of the Rings. And I don't think there's anything certainly wrong with that. Like, I see people all the time push back against the Rings of Power in the sense of like making new creative choices. I know that if anything, the Silmarillion, they probably get some of their inspiration from the appendices as well. But it's not like J.R.R. Tolkien fully fleshed out a lot of these particular moments of either the Second Age or even this initial war at Helm's Deep. And so I do think that there should be some creative freedom given to these showrunners and these directors to build upon what Tolkien kind of established. I had a fan on Facebook one day kind of push back at one of my Rings of Power reels that I posted, talking about how the showrunners for the Rings of Power are just doing disjustice to J.R.R. Tolkien's vision. And one of the points that he pointed out was, and he was talking about the stranger from season 1, and he's like, that can't be, how can they say that that's Gandalf? Gandalf didn't come from the stars, or whatever the case may be. They're just shitting on Tolkien's work and what he created. And look, to be fair, they haven't revealed who the stranger is yet. I think we're under the assumption that it's Gandalf, but do we really know? I mean, it could certainly be somebody else entirely. I'm under the impression that's Gandalf, but they continue to refer to him as the stranger. In the recent interviews, they don't even suggest that that's even Gandalf per se. So are the showrunners going to take liberties and make it somebody else? Will they make a Gandalf? Who knows, right? But I think the fact that people are already taking offense to some of the decisions that the Rings of Power have kind of made. One, having given the showrunners the opportunity to tell the story fully that they certainly want to tell. And I do think there has to be some pushback in the sense of letting these people know, like, look, you cannot adapt everything word to word that you see from books to big screen. Like, it just doesn't work that way. I don't know if they've ever watched a movie in their life, but if you think Harry Potter is a word for word adaptation of the books into films, you're mistaken. If you think the MCU, like Civil War, is built off of the Civil War comic book exactly and brought to the big screen, you're mistaken, right? Like, you can't just adapt something word for word and make it work on television or in the movies. Sometimes you have to take liberties in regards to making something that helps tell a cohesive story, that helps build character motivations and a big story arc. And visually, sometimes in storylines, sometimes maybe it doesn't make sense. It doesn't work that way. But you got to give the creators some level of freedom to tell these stories. I don't know. Did people bitch about Peter Jackson's versions of Lord of the Rings? I mean, when the man literally had to release extended editions of Lord of the Rings, and I think even with those extended editions, it doesn't tackle every aspect of the Lord of the Rings trilogy beat by beat. I'm sure there's still liberties that Peter Jackson took, and maybe there were some people that pushed back against Peter Jackson, but Lord of the Rings is beloved, that trilogy. And so I think if people end up loving Peter Jackson, despite some of the alterations and liberties that he took to bring those books to the big screen, I think we should give the same grace to not only the creators of the Rings of Power, but also, hopefully, the War of Rohirrim. Because if you think this movie is beat for beat everything that Tolkien set out in the appendices, you're highly mistaken, because that is not the case. There may be plot points and moments in history that these characters, that these creators are taking, but make no mistake, they're definitely filling in the blanks and taking the creative liberties to fill in those blanks. And so, I will be interested to see how people handle the War of Rohirrim compared to something like the Rings of Power. And I just think sometimes, these people use excuses to kind of hide reasons as to why they don't necessarily like things. I wonder if they give the same level of discourse to other projects in the same franchise that didn't have all the details in writing from Tolkien when it comes to creating something for the big screen and television. So I think we got to be graceful in regards to allowing these creators to tell the stories that they want to tell, because it will hit home for some people. Some people will be fans of this, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what this is like. Especially when you got the support of Peter Jackson behind it. You got some of the people from the trilogy coming back, helping out in bringing this film to life. And so I'm really looking forward to this. December 13th, The War of Rohirrim. Great trailer. Animation looks great. I love that they bring back the musical score from The Two Towers also. Definitely just hits home and makes me want to go back and rewatch these movies, honestly. Maybe I should rewatch The Two Towers before I tackle the War of Rohirrim movie itself. But great trailer overall, man. Great trailer. Sam, anime, Lord of the Rings. Yeah, man. I'm really I appreciate them tackling this form of animation too. The animation looks really clean. I love the character designs that they have. Her riding horseback, the charges into war, The battle sequences look pretty epic. I love how smooth that they certainly look. And it's a really compelling storyline. I'm kind of excited to learn a little bit more about Helm's Deep, and I think in turn will add even more context to a movie like The Two Towers. So yeah, guys, let me know your thoughts. What did you guys think of this particular trailer? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section box below. Next up, let's go ahead and move on to another franchise. I feel like we haven't heard much from Pacific Rim in quite some time. I do love me a great robot versus kaiju battle, to be quite frank with you. You know, we got news this week. Even though we haven't heard much about the Pacific Rim franchise, I don't even know if they were ever had plans on doing a third film or not. But it looks like instead of a film, we will be getting ourselves a series. That's right. A series is currently in development, ladies and gentlemen. Legendary is coming out the gate swinging. Pacific Rim sequel or prequel series, I should say, in development at Legendary under First Look TV deals. Oops. Hold on a second. Yeah, it's a little bit better. Maybe something you guys can actually read. But yeah, this comes to us from Variety. As we got ourselves a prequel series set to happen. According to the article, Legendary Entertainment has entered into a first look television deal with Eric Heiserer, is what Variety has learned exclusively. Under the deal, Heisener and Carmen Lewis, with whom Heiserer founded the company, will develop and shepherd IP-driven and related projects for Legendary. The first project to be developed under the deal will be Pacific Rim Origin Story series. Eric is a multi-talented, prolific creator whose track record of critical and commercial successes speak for itself. We are thrilled to launch our partnership with Eric with a new entry in the epic, global, popular Pacific Rim universe. We are certain their vision will make for an enthralling expansion of Legendary's beloved franchise. News of the first look deal comes just under 3 weeks after it was announced that they had set up a first look deal at Sony Pictures. He's a celebrated and film TV writer, is Heiserer. He's received Academy Award nominations for Arrival, Best Adapted Screenplay for Arrival, the movie Arrival back in 2017. His other feature writing credits include Netflix film Bird Box, as well as Lights Out. He also did the 2010 remake of A Nightmare on Elm Street. And in television, he's developed Netflix series versions of Shadow and Bone. So yeah, it looks as though the first film for Pacific Rim in the franchise came out in 2013 and grossed over $400 million globally. The sequel, Pacific Rim Uprising, came out in 2018. They also had an anime series. That's right, Pacific Rim The Black, that aired for 2 seasons on Netflix between 2021 and 2022. So this is another expansion of the franchise itself. I'm all for it, man. I'm all for it. Give me a Pacific Rim prequel series. I'll certainly take it. I'd like to see the beginning of this. The moment that a first kaiju certainly comes through. How quickly they're able to create something to defeat these monsters, the beginning of this organization. I think there's something promising, really promising there. And one of the things, too, that I said that kind of has me excited about this a little bit, or I should say, while I'm excited for this, I do think that this undermines another property out there that I personally was excited for. Because, look, this is now sort of the second giant robot concept that's out there in regards to being developed. I don't know where this sequel series or this prequel series is going to land. I don't know if this is something that'll be dropping on Max. I don't know if this is like a Peacock or Hulu or Apple TV. I really have no idea where it's going to land. But you now have Pacific Rim in an origin prequel series. And you also have Amazon creating a Voltron movie, another big giant robot sort of franchise, both which I think can work out really well. But remember mentioning when this news dropped, I'm like, man, talk about a missed opportunity for Power Rangers. Um, Hasbro had this huge plan of expanding the Power Ranger universe in movies, television, animation, kids programming. Um, and now all that's fallen to the wayside. And it feels like right now is a prime opportunity. If you've got a gigantic robot going against gigantic monsters, now is your time to strike while the iron is hot, man. Because now we got Pacific Rim doing a original prequel series. Now you've got Voltron out there. That's a team of 5 space explorers. Big robots are still in, clearly. And people are seeing an opportunity and a void in that realm of being created. And now Voltron and Pacific Rim have both decided to take the lead. Whereas Hasbro stuck to the plan, you could have gotten your foot in the door and been the first to actually come out of the gate swinging. And now you don't have that opportunity anymore. And I think now that this just pushes Power Rangers even further back in the sense of being like any sort of level of originality anymore. Of now if you were to say, hey, a Power Rangers series is going to be developed in like the next 4 to 5 years, what is that going to make Power Rangers, like as far as the big robot stuff goes, like number 4, number 5 in regards to projects that are in development that have sort of the same premise right now. Now you're coming into a market that's kind of flooded with this concept already. And so now you're on the back foot again. So missed opportunity, I think, big time for the Power Ranger franchises. People have now decided to fill up that void with a Voltron movie and now Pacific Rim origin prequel series. So good on them, man. Good on them. I was a fan of the first one. I didn't necessarily care for the second one so much. I did watch the first season of Pacific Rim The Black, which I thought was actually pretty good. I never got the opportunity to check out the second season, though. So I don't know how it wind up wrapping up, but I think this is a great opportunity. I'm ready to go back to this particular world. So let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section box below. The gentleman that's doing the show running for this, or at least the writer for this, seems to have a pretty good track record. So we'll see if they could bring that to the forefront. Or do you think maybe Pacific Rim has certainly lost that bluster? I think there is something important in the sense of giving us a prequel series instead of a sequel series. I am fascinated in the idea of how this world kind of initially began. Ramchem says, "Is there room for Power Rangers at this point?" I don't think so anymore. I think it's missed its opportunity. That's why fall back on animation, or wait another 4 or 5 years, and then try and create something there. But we'll see. And then we got two more topics that we'll kind of wrap up, and we'll probably discuss them here quickly together. Look, I am a fan of horror movies. I do love me a good scary film. Me and the girlfriend, sometimes we love to watch paranormal type of caught on camera sort of supernatural horror stuff, if you will. And sometimes we stay up late before bed and watch some scary home videos of recordings of crazy supernatural stuff. But we do love a good horror movie from time to time. I'm not super big in regards to classics as much as I used to be. I think maybe growing up in the 80s and 90s, they were probably more relevant to me back then. But as we've gotten into the 2000s, a lot of these franchises have either kind of lost their way, or they've had a lot of really terrible sort of sequels or reboots and things like that. But I do feel like horror is certainly making a comeback. I do think within like the past 5 years, we've probably had some really great horror films. And so there is an inkling of interest that I have in these next 2 upcoming projects. We might just kind of go hand in hand, since they are both, I don't want to say connected, but are in that horror realm, if you will. First up being Poltergeist. Poltergeist series is currently in development. The next two are really going to be about some upcoming projects that are in development here. Poltergeist is certainly a fan favorite, maybe a cult classic for some. But according to Variety, Poltergeist TV series is in development at Amazon MGM Studios. It enlists Kalinda Vasquez and Robbie Thompson as showrunners. This is an exclusive report from them. According to them, let me go ahead and bring this up for you guys so you can see what it is that I am reading. Damn it, Anna, why do I? There we go. The Poltergeist television series in development at Amazon MGM Studios has taken a step forward. Variety has learned exclusively that Kalinda Vasquez and Robbie Thompson, these two right here, have boarded the project as writers and showrunners and executive producers. The series was reportedly previously reported in early development back in October of last year. So development is certainly moving forward. Early development, October 2023. Now they have their showrunners and writers on board. Exact plot details are under wraps, aside the fact that the show is inspired by the iconic 1982 horror film. Some of Vasquez's past TV credits include Star Trek Discovery, Once Upon a Time, Fear the Walking Dead, Prison Break, and Nikita. And she's also written for Marvel as far as co-writing the comic book series America Chavez. As for Thompson, he was a writer and eventually co-executive producer on the multiple seasons of Supernatural. Very nice. He then created and served as the showrunner on the prequel series, The Winchesters. I think The Winchesters only lasted maybe about 2 seasons. I think the show was well received, though. Maybe I'm wrong, but with the merger for CW and it changing, it was a show that eventually got canceled. So they are looking to Steven Spielberg's Amblin Television is producing this series also. The original film centered on the Freeling family, who moved into a new home only to discover that it is infested with a horde of ghosts. After the ghosts kidnap their young daughter, the Freelings work with a parapsychologist and the spiritual medium to free their daughter and escape the ghost. We're going to be getting ourselves a television series for Poltergeist. I do wonder, it does say that the plot of this is under wraps, so I'm not quite sure if I will be interested to see like if this builds off of the movie itself or if this is literally going to be the movie just in series form. I am kind of curious to the direction that it's going to go. I personally would like to see them take the concept of Poltergeist and expand upon that. Maybe there's a news article or a news report that might have captured what happened from the Poltergeist movie itself. So maybe like it's within this world where the Poltergeist events did happen. And maybe this is sort of a continuation of either that story or something like that sort of happening again. So I'm hoping that it's more of a just a new project in that world so much instead of just actually being a rewrite of the movie just into television series form. So we'll see what that winds up turning out to be. But yeah, the development for Poltergeist television series is moving forward with Amazon MGM. It was in early stages in October of last year, and less than a year removed, they now have their writers and showrunner on board. But that's not the only series that is being in development, as it seems as though another series has found its showrunner, and that will be the Friday the 13th. I put sequel series in here, but it's actually a prequel series. Let me see if I can. Another prequel series. They like going backwards in time, don't they? But this one actually comes to us from Deadline.com that actually reported on this news. Let me go ahead and bring this up here for you guys too. This one is from Deadline. The article itself states, Crystal Lake, Brad Caleb Kane set as new showrunner for Peacock's Friday the 13th prequel series from A24. A24 has been doing some pretty good work, if you ask me. But let's go ahead and dive into this. Peacock's upcoming Friday the 13th prequel series, Crystal Lake, has found its new showrunner, Brad Caleb Kane. In addition to the show running, Kane will serve as the series creator, writer, and executive producer. He's assuming the reins from Brian Fuller, who was originally set. He was from Star Trek Discovery and Hannibal, who confirmed his exit from the project in May, noting that A24 has elected to go a different way with the material. First announced in October of 2022, Crystal Lake's plot specifics are being kept under wraps. In addition to Kane, executive producers on the series include A24 Victor Miller, who wrote the screenplay for the franchise's original 1980 film. Interesting. Miller's copyright attorney, yada, yada. The project will mark A24's first major IP-driven project amid a recent effort to expand in a more commercial direction. For the moment, I watched Jason Voorhees. This is a quote, I think, from the new showrunner. Yes, he says, from the moment I watched Jason Voorhees squeeze a guy's eyeballs out of his socket in glorious 3D at the tender age of 8 years old, I knew my creative path was someday destined to converge with the man behind the mask, is what Kane said in a statement on his hiring for Crystal Lake. Nothing defined my childhood more than growing up in the golden age of slasher flick, and nothing's defined the genre more than Friday the 13th. I couldn't be more excited for the opportunity to contribute to a chapter to this iconic franchise, particularly with such fearless partners as Peacock and A24. And for those of you who are wondering, it says, no stranger to horror, Kane has most recently served as the co-showrunner and executive producer of It, Welcome to Deary, an anticipated It prequel series, which expands the vision of Andy Muschietti's pairing based off of the 1986 novel. Welcome to Deary premieres in 2025, and it's set to go ahead and release on HBO Max. So there is a part of me, like, based off of the fact that Kane literally was a co-showrunner for It, Welcome to Deary, I think they literally just released I think they released a brief little teaser of Welcome to Deary, maybe like last month, I believe. It does make me wonder if Peacock and A24 might have gotten an early glimpse at the It series. I probably really loved his work. It's gonna be a period piece. It, Welcome to Deary, as it's set in the past, in regards to like how Pennywise and the town of Deary wind up getting sort of the name that it does. How it became, a supernatural, supernatural hub, if you will, for this alien creature or this clown-like creature, this entity, if you will. And so, the idea of like, hey, we kind of want a prequel series to Friday the 13th. So it's probably going to be a period piece set years ago, whether that be the 60s or the 70s. Let's get somebody that works in horror, does period pieces, and knows how to adapt things. And maybe that's where Brad Caleb Kane comes in. Maybe they were really impressed with his work on Welcome to Deary. I think his addition here as the new showrunner taking over for somebody else, again, really, one, makes me kind of now even more excited for what Welcome to Deary might turn out to be, because clearly somebody might have seen that and really appreciated his work and what he was able to do there and thought, hey, this will be perfect for Friday the 13th. I dig the title, Crystal Lake. So I'm kind of excited to kind of see what this is going to be like. I would agree with him in the sense that, the golden age of slasher films was certainly like the 80s and the 90s. And that's definitely when I was a much bigger fan, to certainly say the least. So the idea of being able to go back to that, maybe hopefully recapturing some of that magic that he did or that they had from back in the day. Yeah, man. I'm on board with this one. I'm definitely going to be looking. I feel like I'm more on board with this one than I am the Poltergeist series. I think I was probably more a fan of the Friday the 13th franchise than Poltergeist. But I think they might have the right man for the job here. So we'll see what this winds up turning out to be. But people are taking some creative swings when it comes to horror and taking these franchises and running with it. I mean, maybe series like Chucky, over on Sci-Fi has really impressed a lot of people, and they've been able to see how they can revive some of these franchises. I mean, you look at Predator, you look at Alien, it feels as though they're having sort of like a second renaissance, or like a second a second point in their franchise where they're like in their primes again. And so maybe they feel like, there is an opportunity here to kind of expand and do something different and revisit some of these worlds. So we'll see how creative that they get. But yeah, Crystal Lake lands its showrunner for the prequel series for Friday the 13th, coming fresh off of Welcome to Deary. But yeah, guys, I definitely want to know your thoughts in the comment section box below. Which of these two are you kind of looking forward to? Ram Jam, what's up, Ram Jam? He says, I'd be interested in seeing Friday the 13th prequel series. Yeah, me too. I kind of would be on board with that. Sam, to be fair, I prefer horror films than TV series because I remember Fox The Exorcist TV series didn't do well like the movie, then show. Well, to be fair, that new Exorcist movie I don't think did too well either. So it's really comes down to who the creative certainly is. But I'm glad that you prefer film over TV. Sam says the Exorcist TV show was canceled after the second season. Hey, that's more than the Acolyte got. So. And and it just it's like it literally. I think this also goes to show you just how much like television has changed over the years, in the sense of even the Exorcist TV series got 2 seasons, bro. Before being canceled. Like, you can't tell me that there are worse shows out there that got more opportunities to grow and shine and turn into something else than the Acolyte got. Like. It's just so reactionary to me, man. It's so reactionary. I'm just not a fan of not allowing shows to try and grow and do something. Like, I just think every series should have a minimum of a 2-season requirement, a minimum. Marceline, the horror TV shows are the norm, and I'm all for it. Chucky, Scream, Alien, Halloween, and more to come. Even anime getting into action with a Jujutsu Kaisen and Chainsaw Man. And hey, if you want to deal anime, Terminator Zero too. I don't know if you want to put that in horror though. It was maybe horror / action by the time we got to Judgment Day. Judgment Day definitely turned that franchise into an action film, to certainly say the least. But Terminator Zero, anime-wise, doesn't look like it's holding back. I mean, blood, at least. I don't know if it's a slasher film, but you're absolutely right, Marcelino. Scream got a series. Chucky got a series. Does Halloween have a series? I didn't know. Or maybe they're developing it. Alien is about to have a series with Alien Earth, coming from Noah Hawley, who does Fargo. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, I got nothing on horror television series. They definitely, I can definitely look around and see how horror has benefited from having television series, and which would make me understand why they're trying to push a lot of these projects into development the way that they are. Halloween is about to have a series. Okay, yeah. See, so that would make absolute sense for sure. If you can tell that people are really hungry for that type of content, if you've got really strong stories to tell, maybe not as much of a financial risk, because maybe some people are kind of, cautious when it comes to the big film releases for these franchises. But maybe when it comes to a television series, they're taking paying a little bit more closer attention to the IP and the franchise itself, and telling more compelling stories. So maybe that's where it's benefiting from. But yeah, let me know your guys' thoughts. Poltergeist coming out with a television series along with Friday the 13th, as both of them land showrunners. What's the next horror franchise you want to see turn into a television series? Didn't they have a Nightmare on Elm Street one? I thought they had a Nightmare on Elm Street television series. Horror franchises without TV series. Ooh, The Conjuring, maybe? Let me see. Top 10 horror franchises ranked. Let's see. Predator, no. Insidious, no. Nightmare on Elm Street. Why do I think that there has been a Nightmare on Elm Street television series? I wouldn't mind a television series of Nightmare on Elm Street. Saw, no. Conjuring, maybe. Alien, Evil Dead. We got an Evil Dead series. Scream's got a series. Hannibal Lecter. Hannibal's got a series too. Yeah, give me Conjuring or Nightmare on Elm Street. I would like to see that. Right? Yeah, I thought they had one. Yes, they did have a Nightmare on Elm Street series back in the 90s. So give me a second one. Ooh, Texas Chainsaw Massacre would be a good one. I am kind of curious as to how you would build that out. But yeah, Sam says do a Paranormal Activity TV series. I would be down for that. I'd be down for that. I almost feel like Paranormal Activity and The Conjuring, you can almost do like a mashup of the two. When I think of like Conjuring, I do like the idea of like exorcisms having to be done, hauntings, like video camera stuff you could probably really get away with when it comes to Conjuring. I don't know. I just think that there's like a modern take on Conjuring and Paranormal Activity. I think you could really make work. So yeah, we'll see. But those would be the first two that come to mind. Conjuring, I wouldn't mind a Conjuring TV series or another stab at a Nightmare on Elm Street if I had to pick. But with that out of the way, ladies and gentlemen, I think you know what time it is.
And now, everybody, it is time for live viewer questions.
And we're going to get into the live viewer question portion of the show. And how do you submit a live viewer question? Well, I am glad that you asked. Let me go ahead and pull this up, and I will show you. I'll show you. Come with me. I'll show you. This comes to us from our YouTube channel right here. Just go over to our YouTube channel, and every Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening, we'll make a post. Go to the community tab, and you'll see our live viewer question post up here. It drops every Saturday for you guys in the afternoon or evening. You could submit your live viewer questions over like so. Go ahead and sort this out. And then I'll put on some music too. And if the music becomes too loud, let me know. I might be silent for a little bit and let this music roll. I'm gonna leave it at there. But yeah, if it's too loud for you guys, let me know in the comment section box. If it's too low, I'll go ahead and lower it if I absolutely need to. So let's go ahead and dive into. Well, actually, before we do, Marcelino, a TV show that takes place in Stephen King's world, since all of his books take place in the same world. That would be a show that you would want. I think they already developed a show like that. Isn't that Castle Rock? I think Castle Rock was meant to be that. I think it was like took place in one particular town, but I don't know if this is like the same town that pops up in Stephen King's books or not. Yeah, it says the psychological horror series set in Stephen King's multiverse, combined with mythological scale and intimate character storytelling of his works, weaving an epic saga of darkness and light played out on the few square miles of Maine woodland. Yeah, if you haven't checked out Castle Rock, I think they got 2 seasons of it. I like the first season for sure, but I think they attempted to do that, Marcelino, with Castle Rock. Let's see here. First question, Jessica Friedman. Would you like to see a live action Ultron movie? And would you like to see the 3rd season? And what would you like to see in the 3rd season of My Adventures of Superman? So my third season of My Adventures of Superman is in the process of being worked on. It is in early development right now. But I do think, I don't even know what they're doing with season 2, honestly, with the exception of having Supergirl as the main, not as a main lead, but a main character, along with Superboy. I believe Superboy is going to be making a debut in there also. So look, I don't know if Steel is going to be in season 2 or if he's kind of already been established in season 1 or not. But I wouldn't mind the idea of additional characters kind of being in there. Maybe some looks at a Justice League would be great. I haven't finished season 1 of My Adventures of Superman, so who certainly knows? But I do think that there's a great opportunity for that show to certainly expand. As far as would I like to see a live action Voltron movie? Absolutely. Growing up as a kid, I was a huge Voltron fan. I still am. I love the most recent iteration of it from Netflix, The Legendary Defender. I think it's a great animated series. I recommend for anybody to certainly watch. Growing up as a kid, I always wanted to be Keith, the pilot of the Black Lion. There was a time in my childhood where I was not a fan of my name, and I wanted to rename myself Keith. I just always thought Keith was such a badass. Plus, red was my favorite color. I absolutely love the Voltron suit. I think people may not know this, but if I ever was to cosplay as anybody, I probably would want to cosplay as Keith from Voltron with the helmet and everything. I don't think Voltron suits get enough cosplay work, to be quite honest with you. So yes, would I like one? I would love one. And thankfully for us, I believe Amazon is in the process of creating one, or at least they're doing a live action Voltron. Whether or not, I don't believe it's a series. I believe it's a movie. Now, whether or not it's released on the big screen or on streaming, that I don't know. But we are getting one. We are getting one, Jessica. Blossom. There are a lot of underrated superheroes in Marvel and DC. Which one deserves the most attention? Ooh, a lot of underrated superheroes. Oh, man. I will say, growing up as a fan of the Avengers, I always really enjoyed Vision and Wonder Man. I don't know if it was just their individual story arcs or their interweaving of a love triangle, if you will, and a weird romance along with Scarlet Witch. But I've always liked them as characters also. But I mean, thinking back, if we viewed characters like Thor and Iron Man as like B-level characters at the time, God, Vision and Wonder Man had to be like C or D level characters. But what's fascinating is we're getting series for both of them now. Vision Quest and I believe Wonder Man. I don't think Wonder Man has been axed. I think Wonder Man actually is wrapped its filming. So we'll see. We'll see how that comes out. As far as DC, for some strange reason, I have been itching for like a Plastic Man or Elongated Man television series. I don't know why. If not a television series, then just seeing him pop up in the movie. But I would love to see one of those characters kind of brought to life. And I think even the idea of us getting somebody like Metamorpho in Superman, I think is pretty genius too. Props to James Gunn for not being afraid to tackle these B, C level characters and making them household names. So I hope he does Metamorpho justice. There are a lot of morphers in Power Rangers, right? What kind of items should they use besides belt buckles, cell phones, and wrist morphers? For me, I would like to see them use a magic mirror or a mini tablet or those fantasy crystal necklaces. Was there more to this question? It didn't give me was there more to that question? Because it's not giving me the ability to see more, Blossom. There might have been more. I see like 3 dots, but it's not giving me the option. What kind of items should they use? I do dig the mini tablet. I wonder how you do that though. I don't think you could go wrong with sunglasses again. I would be down for more glasses. Glasses, a mini tablet. A tablet is just like, it's cool because it could work as an interface, but like, where would you even pull that out at? Right? Like, who fits a tablet in their back pocket? Like, where would they even pull it out from? That's would be my issue. I wouldn't mind going back to sunglasses though. Or maybe like contact lenses. Maybe there's like a feed, like a button that you can just push, like a tap on the side, but it activates like your contact lens or something. Contact lens, I think, would be cool if they went that route. A necklace, I think, would be cool too. So yeah, some really cool opportunities they could make. The most talented man alive. Things I have found that stood out in the Amazing Spider-Man 2012 movie. Great movie. Unlike the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man #1 film. You know, Marceline, I was just about to say that. Hats would be interesting too. I don't know how it would work, but I dig the concept. Before I move on, I do want to point this out. Marcelino says they also planned at one point a Plastic Man movie in the 90s with Keanu Reeves as the lead. Thank God he didn't. But what I did come to find out this week from Jeff Schneider, the insider, who usually does have some really great sources of information. Speaking of Keanu Reeves, apparently Keanu Reeves was first tapped to be in The Acolyte. Believe it or not. Leslie Headland actually approached Keanu Reeves first to play Master Soul in the show. But it was actually scheduling conflicts that forced Keanu to have to back out of the series. And Leslie Headland then turned to Lee Jung-Jae. So Keanu Reeves was about to be in The Acolyte. Probably he might be thankful that he didn't get that opportunity. I am kind of curious how people would have reacted to it. But if you ask me, I do think Lee Jung-Jae should have been the first choice, to be quite frank with you, with what he was able to bring to it. And honestly, I think the idea of Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss just a little bit too on the nose for me for The Matrix, so I'm kind of glad that he wasn't there. I do think Lee Jung-Jae, performance-wise, gave us the best Master Soul that we could have asked for. So I think Keanu Reeves' take would have just been different. The most talented man in the world, talking about the Amazing Spider-Man movie. Unlike the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man, where Peter goes to school after the death of Uncle Ben, the entire student body had already heard of the tragedy and stares at him as he walked through the halls. Flash Thompson, who we will know is usually a bully, but in this version, he actually confronts Peter, but only to tell him that he was very sorry that his uncle passed away. Seeing Peter lift him up, then putting him down was very emotional. This was a different scene compared to the original Spider-Man 1 with Tobey Maguire. The argument between Peter and Ben early on added depth to their relationship and made Uncle Ben's tragic death even more impactful. The scene at school with Flash showing sympathy for Peter was a poignant moment, showcasing how the news of Uncle Ben's death has spread quickly and affected the entire student body. Thompson's unexpected display of sympathy and Peter's emotional response were a nice departure from the typical bully-victim dynamic. These changes allowed the film to explore Peter's emotional journey in a way, making his transformation into Spider-Man more nuanced and relatable. It's a great example of how reinterpreting familiar characters and storylines can lead to exciting and moving moments. Of course, I had to mention that the young boy Jack that Peter saves, and later in the Amazing Spider-Man 2, we see him again, but this time he wears a Spider-Man costume, was a great nod to the future generations of Spider-Man fans and a testament to Peter's inspiring heroism. By saving Jack, Peter created a positive impact on the boy's life, and the costume moment shows how Peter's actions have inspired Jack to look up to him as a role model and to overcome fear. This scene also serves as a full circle moment, as Peter was once a young boy inspired by his own heroes and now becoming a hero himself, inspiring others. It's a heartwarming and uplifting conclusion to the film, highlighting the ripple effect of kindness and heroism. Again, the costume moment with Jack also subtly hints at the idea that Peter's legacy will live on and others will be inspired to follow in his footsteps. Much like Miles Morales in the Spider-Verse comics and films, is a beautiful touch that adds depth and emotional resonance to the story. Yeah, I definitely agree. I don't even know if I realized that was the same kid from 1 and 2 for the Amazing Spider-Man. So I'm glad that you brought that back. Now it makes me want to go back and rewatch the first Amazing Spider-Man. It's been a while since I've seen that movie. But I would agree. I did appreciate the new swings, no pun intended, that Sony took when it comes to the Amazing Spider-Man. I personally am not the biggest fan of Andrew Garfield as Peter Parker. I love him as Spider-Man, but yeah, that is a great moment between him and Flash Thompson compared to what we got from Sam Raimi's first Spider-Man. But the dynamic of Uncle Ben's death, I did find really fascinating in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, and not just the first one, but I recently rewatched Spider-Man 2, and I really enjoyed the moment that he has with Aunt May when they're sitting at the kitchen table, and Peter, I think they just had I don't know if it was the anniversary or they just had the funeral for Uncle Ben. I can't remember what it was. But he's sitting at the table with Aunt May, and he confesses to Aunt May that he had an opportunity to stop the burglar, and he didn't. And you could see the remorse and the guilt that Peter kind of sort of carries with him in that moment, and what he probably expected was an Aunt May that would comfort him and tell him it's okay. I love the decision by Sam Raimi to have her pull away from him. And it really throws another rift into Peter Parker's life here. But I love the idea when he revisits Aunt May towards the end, and she's had some time to sit with it and brew upon it, and how she takes Peter's failure, if you will, and comforts him. And it definitely hints at the idea too that she recognizes that he's also Spider-Man in that moment, or she knows something that Peter hasn't quite told her yet, and she turns that story around that Peter told her about Uncle Ben, and she turns it into a story of inspiration. One, so much in fact that helps Peter come to terms with his grief and the doubt that he has in himself, and allows him to tap into his abilities once again. Because it's after that moment, if I'm not mistaken, that he goes and talks to Mary Jane, and then Mary Jane gets captured, and it's got that great shot of him standing outside the cafe, and the camera looks at his fist balling up, and his glasses, he has to take his glasses off because his eyes no longer focus, and he realizes the capturing of MJ, him having to tap into his heroic side, the belief that his aunt gave him in himself for forgiving him about the death of Uncle Ben, all that culminating together for him to feel like he's the hero that he's certainly meant to be. And it's one of the reasons why I love Spider-Man 2 that much more. So I do think that both movies managed to utilize the death of Uncle Ben in new and riveting ways, whereas they could have just dropped the Uncle Ben storyline in Sam Raimi's first one and we're showcasing it as just the origin story, but he doubles back on it in the second one and utilizes it as a way to bring Peter down and then also uplift him based off of his relationship with his aunt. And so I do think both movies handle it extremely well, but I will agree with you. I think Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, or just the way that The Amazing Spider-Man handles it is certainly unique in its own right, for sure. So appreciate that, most talented man. Marcelino, what's up, Marcelino? With all the debt Paramount Plus has suffered, everyone has been pointing out the possibility that Paramount Plus could shut down. Yeah, I have heard of talks about that. If that's the case, which streaming service do you think Paramount original content would be transferred to? Maybe Peacock? I'm curious if Peacock would pick them up. Yeah, that's really the only person I would want to see maybe is Peacock. Apple, I think, is just too big. Maybe Paramount. I mean, maybe Apple. Apple and Peacock. Hulu's already with Disney. Disney's got its own thing. I don't want HBO Max. Max already went ahead and already merged with somebody else recently. Amazon's got their own thing. Yeah, I'd say Apple or Peacock for Paramount Plus. After watching Rings of Power myself and watching a couple of reviews and breakdown videos from Tolkien fans, here's what I learned regarding the changes. The problem Tolkien fans has is to do less with changes themselves and more the reasoning why those changes were made. When talking about the changes the Rings of Power made, they always compare them to the changes Peter Jackson made in the Lord of the Rings film and why those changes are praised while the show isn't. Peter Jackson's changes were made in the service of story. Tom Bombadil and the Attack of the Shire were excluded because they served no relevance to the overall story. The changes the writers made for the Rings of Power weren't done to help the story, but rather because they didn't want the story to be too predictable to book readers. The writers are hoping to be clever, but it comes across as more deceptive and leads to disappointment. Deceptive? Really? The mystery of who Sauron is felt more like gaslighting than great writing. Do you agree with this? I mean, I guess my question would be, sometimes I can we talk briefly about fans' entitlement a little bit? And I say that in the sense of sometimes I think we gotta stop making excuses for writers. And I say that in the sense of, or at least trying to make excuses for, like, I guess my question would be, they say the changes the writers made for the Rings of Power weren't done to help the story, but rather because they didn't want the story to be too predictable to book readers. I mean, did the writers say they weren't done to help the story? I mean, could it not help the story by not being too predictable? I mean, I would say I would say changing certain aspects or taking liberties to certain aspects would be so that the story isn't too predictable, but at the same time maybe helps the story. Like I could see both of those things being true. The writers were hoping to be clever, but it comes across as deceptive and leads to disappointment. I don't know how that comes across as deceptive. I mean, I agree with the idea of Peter Jackson's changes made in service of the story. Like, I feel like I've heard Peter Jackson mention this before, that Tom Bombadil doesn't really have a place in what you're trying to do in regards to adapting it to the big screen. Maybe slows the pacing of things down. And the Attack from the Shire were excluded because they serve no relevance to the overall story. I mean, I don't know. Look, I'm not a Tolkienite, so I can't say that the changes that the writers made of the Rings of Power took away from the overall story. The mystery of who Sauron is felt more like gaslighting than great writing. Do I agree with that? I mean, I guess I'm like, gaslighting of what though? Like, to be honest, I didn't care for the character that turned out to be Sauron. I really didn't care for him. And I think the fact that I didn't care for him and he eventually comes out to be Sauron, I think is great writing. I think that is great writing. Because one, I don't know if people saw it coming. And two, Homeboy probably was like the most disliked character in the series. He came across as weird to me, just like performance-wise came across as weird to me. And then you reveal him to be Sauron at the end. Holy, what a twist. Like, I think that's great writing. I think if you can spend that much time worrying about the mystery of who Sauron is and not liking the character so much, I think that means that you're more invested in the character and the writing of that character than some people want to actually perceive. I think that's great writing, carrying you along to have the emotional arcs that you're supposed to have. And people looking at this character like, oh, it's just not great. No, it's great writing because you care enough about this character to care. You know, so look, for some instances, I'm sure some people are right in that regards, but I'm also just not a Tolkien purist in order to really argue with some of these people. But as a fan of somebody that watched Peter Jackson's trilogy, picked up the actual Lord of the Rings trilogy book, I've watched the Hobbit trilogy, I've watched the first seasons of the Rings of Power. That is my worldview of Lord of the Rings and Tolkien's work. So as an outsider looking in, this all feels like the same world to me. It all feels like it has connective tissues. They all have some pretty great writing. And for somebody that is an outsider looking in, I can see these creative decisions and these storyline points making sense. And I think, again, as a creator, that's what you have to do. You know, you got to take liberties sometimes. And again, we're also dealing with appendices. We're also dealing with moments in time in Tolkien's history that aren't fully explored. I'm not saying that all of this stuff isn't fully explored. I'm sure some of the things that are explored, you probably still have to take some liberties to kind of make things work. Do we need more action somewhere? Do we need more drama somewhere? What's the pacing of this certainly going to be like? All of that needs to be taken into an account when it comes to what these creators are doing. And so I just think sometimes giving creators passes, making excuses for them, but not making excuses for the other creators in this franchise, I just think is being intellectually dishonest and just not fair to the creators of the series. Could some of these arguments hold up? Yeah, absolutely. But I do also think that some of these opinions and some of these things should be taken from a perspective of taking a step back, realizing just how much content is there for them to adapt from, and the creative liberties that sometimes they have to take in order to adapt and make things fit for the big screen or for the small screen. It's different in every instance. And look, they're even bringing Tom Bombadil back in the Rings of Power that Peter Jackson passed on. So are they not happy with that too? Had they excluded Tom Bombadil in the Rings of Power, would they have given the showrunners a pass there? Or would they said, oh, well, this time Tom Bombadil should have been in the series, so they should have included. I mean, it's what I'm saying. It's the moving of the goalpost sometimes, man. Sometimes you got to keep your head down and you got to make the show that you want to make. Yes, maybe you should stick your head up after the show wraps up, listen to some of the constructive criticisms so that you can make improvements on season 2, but then duck your head back in the sand and create the content that you want to create. So I just think sometimes we're not being fair. We're not being fair. Marcelino says, I should also mention they compared to House of Dragon, completely different writer, but okay. Because even the book readers knew what was going to happen. It made their experiences still great because they saw they love to be adapted faithfully. To be fair, House of the Dragon actually has novels, right? They're fleshed out by George R.R. Martin. Some of the stuff that they're adapting here from Tolkien is literally appendices. It's literally not even full stories of some of these events. You know, you got to fill in some of these blanks to make some of these moments in history certainly connect with one another. To book readers, the House of Dragon was predictable, but it still made it fun seeing scenes that they love from the books be adapted to live action. I see a lot of pushback on season 2 and how they left season 2 hanging. You know, I see a lot of people complain about how they probably should have went a different path. Why didn't you give us the war? Why didn't you start the war at season 2? Right? Like it's a creative choice to leave your ass on a cliffhanger and come back for season 3. Right? So like, yeah, while some people love season 1, great season, maybe adapted faithfully to the book, I'm pretty sure there's probably some aspects in time jumping that you probably missed. But you needed to make original choices in order to have to have, you know, have those moments in time. But you know, everything needs liberties sometimes creatively in order to kind of fully make it work. So Marceline says House of Dragon isn't a full novel, it's more of a history book. I mean, it's written out though, isn't it? Let's see here, what else we got. Why Disney won't adapt any Star Wars novels or comics. Star Wars is about lore and story that includes the comics and novels. Star Wars doesn't create comics and novels just so one day they can be adapted. Whenever a comic or novel is created, it's treated as canon, therefore it will never be retconned. Star Wars isn't supposed to do adaptations, it's supposed to build off of each other. If the comics and novels never do adapt it, then that's just viewed as disservice to the hard work to the people that put those stories in the universe. And I just mean the writers and I. Hold on. Whenever a comic or novel is created, it's treated as canon and therefore will never be retconned. Star Wars isn't supposed to do adaptions. I don't know. I didn't. Was there like a 10 Commandments of Star Wars that I didn't catch? It's supposed to build off of each other. If the comics or novels ever do get adapted, then that's just viewed as a disservice to the hard work to the people who put those stories in the universe. And I don't just mean the writers, I also mean the higher ups who approve the story. And it's viewed as a disservice to the fans who fell in love with those stories only to have it replaced by something similar. Star Wars isn't Marvel or DC where changes are expected to be made because the adaptation isn't canon to the comic universe. Star Wars is about everything. The only way adaptations can happen is that they have to be shown through flashbacks, or like how Ahsoka showcased the ending of Rebels, where they recontextualize certain scenes. But in terms of full stories being adapted, this is why Disney most likely won't adapt any of the comics or novels, and most fans also want the novels and comics to be adapted because they love having their lore and storytelling in one universe and not to be decanonized anything. I don't agree with that, Marceline. I'm sorry. I appreciate your opinion, but I just don't agree with that. I think that's us making Star Wars smaller again. Star Wars isn't supposed to be adapted. One, that's not a rule. If comics and novels are ever to be adapted, and it's just viewed as a disservice to the hard work. I don't a disservice. What? Like we have two different views of what disservice to the hard work of the people who put those stories in the universe together. Because to me, I think it's a service to those people that had incredible stories and concepts, because not everybody reads comics, not everybody reads novels, but a lot of people watch television shows, a lot of people watch movies. I think it's more of a, hey, your story was so damn compelling that we needed to tell the story on a bigger level. And I would not be opposed to the idea of getting a writer's room together and putting in the author of Lords of the Sith and whoever the writers or the showrunners of the show is going to be, and picking the brain of the person that put the story together and helping adapt it to the big screen. I mean, I just think that the same thing could be utilized. I mean, if Star Wars is about everything, why is that everything not include adaptions? I don't think you said the only way adaptions can happen is if they'll be shown in flashbacks, or like how Ahsoka showcased the ending of Rebels where they recontextualize certain scenes. But in terms of full stories, I mean, I don't, you say things like isn't supposed to be adapted, the only way. No, we gotta get out of that concept. You gotta think broader, right? You're using terms in which you're shrinking a franchise. I think the idea of being able to adapt comics and novels isn't a disservice, but more of a recognition of how great some of these stories are. You know, it's the same thing where, you know, Legends and expanded universe stuff may not necessarily be canon, but there's some great things in there. And that's why creators today still mine from EU and concepts of Legends. You think the idea of like Ben Solo was an original concept? You know, that's adapted from a premise from extended universe of Jason and Jason Solo, the child and daughter of Luke and Han, mixed with a little bit of a collaboration of Luke Skywalker's son, Ben Skywalker. Right? So I think there's some, you know, I think there's plenty room to kind of be recontextualized or adapted and bringing things to life. So yeah, I just don't view. Again, I respect your decision. I just have a different perspective on novels and comic books being adapted than you do. I just think, and again, I'm not saying you should adapt everything. I definitely do think you should take creative swings and do things outside of the box that we haven't had told before. But I also do think if you've got a really great story that you think you can really turn into a movie, and it's been well received from a reader's standpoint, tap into it if it's going to help your franchise grow. But that's just me. You certainly don't have to agree, but that's just me. Peg C, I have a couple questions. What was the first video game console? And what's the first game you ever played? Probably Nintendo. Nintendo was definitely my first game console. I don't think I had an Atari, but I remember playing Atari games. I remember Tetris was a big one. There was a Atari Ghostbusters game that I used to play as a kid. It was pretty simple. I think you had one stream of your proton pack. Ghosts would come across and you'd have to capture it and then guide it to like the tractor. It was pretty simple, but that might have been the first game I remember playing as a Ghostbusters game on Atari, along with Tetris, and then of course Super Mario and Duck Hunt. That was the game console I had, was Nintendo. That was my first one. It came with, I don't remember if it was like a trio of games all in one or if it was separate games, but I definitely had, it might have been two separate games. It might have been a combo of Super Mario and Duck Hunt. So I had the gun and the controller, and then another game I had was Track and Field, where I had the big gaming pad where you had to like run on the different buttons and stuff. Because I remember doing the long jump and different like track and field stuff where I would like run on my pad, and then when it was time for me to jump, I would jump off my pad onto my bed to get that good distance, and then I would jump back onto the pad when I was ready. But yeah, do you remember when Ninja Turtles were rock stars? They had their own tour called Coming Out of Their Shells tour. I do. Yeah, I remember the puppeteer characters of them being on stage with like instruments and stuff. I do remember seeing commercials for the tours. Yes. Did you ever watch Tom and Jerry cartoons and Droopy cartoons? Not Droopy cartoons. I don't remember who Droopy. I don't know who Droopy is. Tom and Jerry, yes. I was that old. Tom and Jerry, Woody the Woodpecker, and then who was the damn? He used to come on the Woody the Woodpecker show. He was the penguin with like the little hat, little red and white hat. I can't remember his name. Who had the best theme song for the Sixth Ranger? Tommy is the Green and White Ranger, Trey the Gold Ranger, or Shane the Silver. Ooh, something was telling me Trey. I gotta go back and listen to it. But I was a really big fan of Tommy's as the Green and White Ranger. But I might need to re-listen to Trey the Gold Ranger one. Me Loves Bacon. Troll Burrows could be redeemed as a character. First and foremost, guys, for those of you who don't know, the Power Morphicon is certainly going on right now in San Diego. or Anaheim, I believe. Excuse me, Anaheim. Power Morphicon is certainly happening. Bummed I'm not able to be there. Shout out to Datula, who I know is certainly there right now. Shout out to Jinsaku, who I know is out there right now. Let's see here. We all know that Andrew Gray's portrayal as Troy in Power Rangers Super Mega Force was somewhat one-dimensional, lacking a distinct personality. If he were to return as a veteran Ranger, exploring Troy's backstory and personality could redeem his character. I would agree. It would be fascinating to see Troy's motivations and values beyond being a Red Ranger, his relationship with other Rangers, especially with his own teammates, personal struggles or conflicts being a Red Ranger, or personal struggles or conflicts that shaped him into the leader he became, how his experience as a Ranger influenced his life after Super Mega Force by delving into Troy's character. The show could add depth to his original storyline and provide a more satisfying character arc, showcasing Andrew Gray's acting range, which was somewhat limited by Troy's initial characterization. A well-crafted backstory and personality development could not only redeem Troy as a character, but also enhance the overall Super Mega Force narrative. Troy's recurring dreams of the legendary battle were a huge, intriguing plot point in Super Mega Force, but they were left unexplored. If he were to return as a veteran Ranger, it would be an excellent opportunity to finally address and resolve this storyline. Perhaps the dreams were hinted at a larger destiny or purpose for Troy, a connection to the legendary Rangers through his energies from the Ranger Keys, a warning or prophecy about a future threat, a manifestation of Troy's own subconscious doubts or fears. By revisiting this plot thread, the show could provide closure to Troy's story arc, offer insight into legendary battle significance. In conclusion, Andrew Gray's return as Troy could be a great chance to tie up loose ends like the history of the Ranger Keys and Gosei himself, adding depth to the Power Rangers universe. Perhaps Gosei, the Green Ranger, the Green Morphing Master, implanted the dreams of the legendary battle into Troy's mind through the power of the Morphing Grid via the Ranger Keys. So he would be the one to help lead his team into the legendary battle alongside the legendary Rangers. Look, I personally was never a fan of Troy's character. I have seen some people say, Andrew's a much better actor than he's portrayed in there. And look, that may be true. I haven't really seen much of Andrew Gray's stuff to suggest that, but I do think you're tapping into something here, AJ. Interesting. I don't know if Troy's character would ever get another arc, but if he were to get another arc, I do agree that this is exactly what he would need. Like, I would need to see Troy in a much bigger role if he's going to return, and I mean that in the sense of at least fleshing out his character a lot more, giving him some emotional depth, seeing his own personal struggles and along with his victories. I do like the idea of tapping into the concept of, like, maybe this dream was more than just a warning. Maybe it is a warning or a prophecy for a much bigger threat than just the legendary battle. I think that'd be kind of cool to tap into. So yeah, I guess for me, it would depend on who's the writer, who's the director, and what does the story ask for. And if they want to give Troy another opportunity with the returning Andrew Gray, as long as he's staying out of trouble and he can really put his best foot forward, I would be open to it. Sam, what's up, Sam? He says it's Power Morphicon this weekend, and on every panels, the Legend of the White Dragon. Oh, they have a Legend of the White Dragon? Nice. Power Rangers Shattered Past and Bloodline of Grid, and also Zenith Films Media for Rail Riders and Beast Hunters. And now they do another Sentai adapted Q Ranger called Power Ranger Cosmos. Good title. So how to go work it out? It's so shocking. Huh? Power Ranger Cosmos? What's happening? What is that? What's Power Ranger Cosmos? Maybe I'll have to look it up. Oh, it's a fan fiction series loosely based on a Sentai series. Is that a real thing? I don't think it's like an official live action adaptation or anything like that. But yeah, that's cool. I'm glad they have some good panels certainly lined up. I think I saw it was at Ika Darville and his counterpart from Super Sentai doing a morph together. Over on Twitter. I thought that was pretty badass, to be quite frank with you. Very cool stuff. Definitely wish I was there. Doomsday. I know this isn't much of a question, but I just wanted to point out this crazy coincidence that I found a few days ago. As I was wrapping up my first year of college, congratulations. We had started lap 1 of Boom Boomger and the season as a whole. As I came back home for the summer, we had started lap 2 of Boom Boomger, and now I'm moving into my second year of college. We're on lap 3 of Boom Boomger. I find it really funny how lap 1 was from episodes 1 through 9. I was wrapping up my first year. Lap 2 was episodes 10 to 25 as I was on summer vacation. And now lap 3 starts with episode 26, and I started my second year. Very cool. I like that, Doomsday. If you watched Deadpool and Wolverine, what were your overall thoughts about it? You know, I will say this. I think out of all the people that watched Deadpool and Wolverine here at Hero Report, I was probably the most down on it. And I mean that by I gave it a B+, and everybody else gave it an A- or an A+. I don't think the movie's bad. I had a fun time with it. But to be fair, I saw the movie a week late. I did my best to try and be as hide from spoilers as I could, but it was just too hard to. And I had a lot of the spoiler stuff kind of ruined for me by the time I went into the movie. So any level of surprise, unexpectedness, shock, and awe that I think probably would have went into adding to my enjoyment of the movie just wasn't there for me. So it kind of took away from my experience, to be honest with you. I think I might have enjoyed it a little bit more. I didn't care for the bye 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 dance sequence personally. Cool choreography though. I don't know. I guess while I appreciated it handling itself as its own sort of story, I would have liked to have seen where, or a hint as to where they're going next. There is something enjoyable about just wrapping up a story, and I thought Deadpool 3 did a great job of wrapping up its story that it wanted to tell from a trilogy standpoint and just a standalone movie. But this does go back to what I mentioned earlier about the misuse of credits. I really would have liked to have seen much better use of mid or post credit scenes to really push the envelope as to where are we going next with these characters, and we didn't necessarily get that. There are moments I didn't care for, like all the Deadpools. I didn't really care for that. Cool battle sequence at the end, but I don't know. It was just okay. It was fun to me. I had a good time with it. How would you rank all the unadapted Sentai seasons from didn't care that it was adapted to they really should have adapted it? How would you rank all the unadapted Sentai series? Oh, God. Let me see. Sentai seasons without a PR adaptation. How long is this list? Okay. Tokuger, Lupin versus Pat Ranger, Zoojer. Well, they did adapt that though. Akiba Ranger. I see a lot of Akiba Rangers up here. The Super Sentai Strongest Battle, Tokuger, Zoojer, Akiba Ranger, High School Heroes, Lupin Pat. Okay, I'm not showing too many that weren't adapted, but if we're talking like from MMPR to current, the ones that were missed, main series, Tokuger, Zoojer, and Lupin Pat. I'm not going to add Akiba Ranger. I will even add the miniseries for a Strongest Battle in there, though. So out of the 4, from should have been adapted to not adapted, damn. Should have been adapted. You know what? I will say Strongest Battle should have been adapted. I think it would have been really cool for just like a 4-week like a mini series, I really would have loved to have seen that. So one should have been adapted, Strongest Battle. Under that, though, I would say I didn't finish this series, but give me Zoologier. After that, Lupin Pat, and then lastly, Tokuger. Just because I put Tokuger at the end. There's probably a lot of people that would have liked Tokuger to be adapted. I still don't know how I feel about it, but I love that series so much. I almost don't want anybody to touch it. I don't want anybody to touch that series. It was just so perfect in its own right. So that's how I probably would put it. Super Sentai Strongest Battle, I think, should have been first adapted. Zoologier, Lupin Pat, and then Tokuger. And that will do it for all our live viewer questions, ladies and gentlemen. I'm kind of curious how you guys would organize that. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section box below. But that will do it for all of our live viewer questions. Let's see. Marcelino says they shouldn't decanonize any of the novels or comics. You can build off a comic or novel show to be a sequel, but adaptions, no thank you. Okay, that's your whatever you feel like. Marcelino says Star Wars treats comics and novels with the same level of importance as movies. If you adapt it, then it gets decanonized, and it poses the question, what's the point? I mean, I don't view that as a decanonization of something. I mean, if it's part of canon, it's in there, it's in the timeline. If you're just building, if you're adapting it and you're taking that story, especially I think if you bring on the creator of that story, I think it's the story is intact, right? His story is intact. It's still taking place during that same period of time. You're just telling it on a bigger scale. You know, maybe some things from the novels are a little bit harder to adapt in movies and television, but the main premise, the main point of the story remains intact. So I'm just not under the belief that you adapt something and the original aspect of it is decanonized. I don't know where we're getting that from. Why create the comics in the first place or the novels in the first place? Because that's where you're getting your main idea. And I think it just comes down to when you come up with that idea. I mean, maybe at the time they've got a really great story to tell, comic books, novel-wise. That's cool. Let's go ahead and build that out, right? We need canon material. We need other stories out there. So you build it with the intention of just telling a good story. And if that story is well received and people absolutely love that story, take a next step forward and actually adapt it. I just don't think it makes what you've then created not worth it. Because maybe not everybody watches movies. Not everybody's a big moviegoer. Some people love novels and reading over watching television and stuff, right? It's just creating the same content but for different mediums. But I don't think it means, well, you know, you shouldn't have made the comic or novel. I don't view that at all that way. All right. Well, thank you so much, guys, for everybody participating in today's live viewer questions. Thank you guys so much. And again, every Saturday we go ahead and post live viewer question post over on our community tab. Feel free to go ahead and check that out every Saturday. And feel free to go ahead and drop your live viewer questions, and we'll tackle them towards the end of the show each and every week. But thank you so much, guys, for everybody participating. I am hoping to check out Alien Romulus this week. If me and the girlfriend can find some time, I would like to do a review for that movie, along with a report card. I think Indy already filled out his report card for Alien Romulus. We got Rings of Power set to go ahead and drop this upcoming Friday. I'm gonna try and see one. I'm gonna try and do a quick rewatch of season 1 if I can. But we will be doing reviews for the Rings of Power. When I'll be dropping the reviews, I don't quite know yet, since it drops on Friday. We'll have to see how my weekends are. Maybe it's something that we review live for you guys on Saturdays instead of that Friday evening. But I'll keep you guys posted on what we're doing with the Rings of Power. If anything, I'll probably put together like a thumbnail or an image for when we're going to promote our reviews. But we'll definitely be doing that. I know we've got Terminator 0 Hour, I think, drops next Friday too. Maybe I can have somebody do a review for that as well. I still haven't had the chance to finish my Batman Cape Crusader. I definitely want to go ahead and finish that off and do a review for you guys. I have been enjoying it. I just haven't been able to finish it. And then we got some other television series that are certainly set to come back. So I'm going to talk to Stuart as well and see what sort of series or movies from streaming that he might want to go ahead and review for us as well. But other than that, guys, stay tuned. We got some shorts. We got some other videos for upcoming movie trailers, news that winds up dropping that we might talk about through the week. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, hit that subscribe button, guys. It definitely will go a long way, along with liking these videos and sharing these videos to let everybody know about A+ Hero Report. So we certainly will be back next weekend for you guys as we lead into, I believe that's what, Labor Day weekend. Maybe I'm tripping, but we'll see what we have for you guys in store next weekend. But I'll definitely be here next Sunday for you guys live on our YouTube channel. But that will do it for us here. We'll certainly see you next week. But until then, guys, do me a big favor. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep it A+. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.